Test 1, 2, 3. If you hear me. Afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the third day, the third afternoon, evening of OpenSlava 2021. Like I said, when you're having fun, time flies, and I remember still prepping for this event. Like OpenSlava is coming in again. Okay, it isn't physical, but the online version last year was great. This year we're gonna rock again, and you're looking forward to it. And before you know it, you're at the last day, and you're looking at the last speakers. But the good news is, I'm super pumped for this last day. And you're going to say, Martine, you're the host. You're getting paid to be super pumped, and you're always excited about something. But really, if I'm looking at the calendar of what we're going to do today, we have speakers talking about how robots are going to take over the world, how you're going to manage the change that we've been talking about in the last few days. We're going to talk to people that are using the Unreal Engine together with AWS cloud services and mixing it up to create beautiful, how do you say that, beautiful graphics and plenty more. So we're going to do all these different things, talk about digital and how it's changing the world. So I'm super excited. I'm looking forward. I think I'm also going to understand some stuff today. I'm super happy for that. I also dressed up in a nice color. It's in Belgium. I don't know what the weather is where you are from, but here it's not very good. So I thought I'll wear something flashy, you know, to cheer things up, because it's going to be a great last day of OpenSlava 2021. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, a lot of people have been watching on YouTube the last couple of days, which is great. So if you're that, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. You can also watch on Facebook, and also for the people walking around with their 3D models in the VSF, the virtual show floor. You can interact with us if you have the full version on there. You can ask the speakers, you can interact with me in the chat, or you can walk around, talk to partners, network, even get yourself made a digital cocktail by an AI robot based on your mood. So you can do a lot of stuff. If you're in the VSF, if you're like, I have no clue what the VSF is, go to openslava.sk, and you can still register. If you do it now, then it's still worth it if you can join us today. If not, just enjoy the show on YouTube or Facebook. I'm looking at my backstage, are getting the speakers ready. The first ones are popping in, so it's great to see that everybody's just as excited, just on time. So I'm looking forward. If you are seeing this, you know, Marnik, I'm with you on this. Let's make this a great third day. Let me know in the chat. I would be happy to hear from you. Of course, if you're in the VSF, you can interact. If you're on YouTube, Facebook, just applaud real hard. I might be hearing it to Belgium. So I'm looking at the time, and we're almost ready. Before I'm gonna announce the speaker and really kick this day off, I'm going to give you a sneak peek tip that if you are in the VSF, which you can still register for, openslava.sk, you can collect badges. And if you collect these badges, you can win a Nintendo Switch. You can be on a lottery and you can win a Nintendo Switch. Now, I've been a bit sneaky and I've been poking around because I've been here for like the third day, and I know where the badges are. So if you're like, I want a Nintendo Switch, I want to get a chance, well, now is your time if you're in the VSF, and you can collect all 6 badges. So I'm going to give you some tips for all 6 badges. If you want to get them, you got to go join the VSF. So you got that. You can go to the exhibition area. Something's going on there. Talk to the people from Accenture, and something is happening in their booth. Go to stage 2. Even though stage 2 is closed, there's still something there for you. Go to the networking lounge and talk to that robot that will make a cocktail based on your mood. I gave you 7 tips. It was only 6 badges, but if you gather those, you will have a big chance of winning that Nintendo Switch. So I just want to give you that little hand of a host. I don't know if I'm allowed to do it, but start your search and you will be able to get the Nintendo Switch. Looking at the time, I think we're ready to kick this day 3 off of OpenSlava 2021. So let's get the show on the road. Welcome back. Like I said, day 3. If you're just joining us for day 3, welcome to OpenSlava 2021. If you're like Marnik, I have been here for the whole 3 days. Well, great that you're such a great supporter of OpenSlava and that you're part of this community, and also to the new people, welcome to the community. And I hope also after today, I will see you next year for OpenSlava 2022. But before we start talking about next year, let's finish up this year with a great lineup of speakers and topics. And like I said, it's going to go over the place with digital. And the first one we're going to start with, and we're going to go straight to hell. I'm looking at my backstage. I already see a picture of him. So if that picture starts moving in my backstage, I know that speaker is there. But like I said, we're going to go straight to hell. And who better to guide us through hell than José, and I hope I pronounce it right, than José Suárez Guerrero. He can correct me if it's wrong, but he's going to talk to us about the front-end hell, a digital journey, how to get through it, how to solve stuff. And I think it's a great opener for this third day. José is a front-end and full-stack chapter lead in Spain ATC and a certified technology architect for Accenture. So I hope he's ready. I hope he's just as pumped as me to take us through hell and guide us out of there into the beautiful world of digital and technology. José, I'm going to do a quick check in the backstage before I announce you that you are indeed ready. If you can turn on your camera, that would be amazing. You can just show a picture. That's a whole different experience, of course. There he is. Look at that. And a beautiful background. You maybe not be able to see him yet, but thumbs up, José, if you're ready to rock. He's giving me the thumbs up. Yep, he's smiling, so he's good. Ladies and gentlemen, front-end hell, a digital journey. José Suárez Guerrero, the stage is yours. Kick this day off and have fun.
Thank you, Marnik, for this what a hell of introduction. And well, good afternoon from Spain, and I'm very happy to be here again. I was in Bratislava 2 years ago there, and also, like in the past, I would like to say dobre popołudnie, and dziękuję jeszcze przyszli na tutto prezentację. So let me share the screen. And I hope that you can see it. Yes, so again, thank you very much for having me here. Well, in the end, front-end hell is something that I've been living during the last 4 years or 5 years, more or less. And I would like to explain you why the meaning of this presentation. But before that, I would like to talk only a bit about myself, as Marnik introduced me. And well, I've been the front-end and full-stack chapter lead for 3 years, and just recently I've shifted to the architecture chapter. So currently I'm the technology architecture chapter lead. And for me, it's been an honor to be working because on all these technologies. And why I'm here? So after, I think it's 21 years, I started working on IT. So 15 years of development with different languages since more or less since the beginning, even with assembly. Later, I shifted to management during 5 years. And well, all that is related to that, certification, projects, PowerPoint, resources, and it's a different world. And luckily, when I started in Accenture 6 years ago, I was living. I was not living in Spain. I came back to work in Accenture. I'm still here. This is my 7th company. So during the time I've been working here in Accenture and in my city, this is what I've been doing. Is architecture, focusing on methodologies, more or less always on the front-end hell, because as part of the front-end and full-stack chapter, I was also the main architect and one of the SMEs of the different front-end technologies. And that's the summary of my previous experience. So again, why front-end hell? And this is about a digital journey. And it's very important to say that this is not based on one specific project, because if you have a look to my profile, LinkedIn, or any other website where you are sharing your experiences, is based on everything. So for me, why front-end hell? So let's think about some of the top-level subjects that any project or any software project always needs to consider. So see, if a front-end project is about software engineering, is a must. This is not well, for some people, this is like an art, but software engineering is also a science. And I would like to think on this way. We need to apply, like in any other projects, the principle and patterns, not only based on your own experience in previous projects, but also based on methodologies, based on different ways of working, based on the experiences of other people, based also on good practices that is more or less close to the technology and the problem you want to solve. But again, you need to focus on that. And like any other project, you need to consider the architecture. The architecture is something that we can see always in backend projects with all these nice diagrams, with microservices everywhere, with API, with a lot of connections, with a lot of different approaches, different architectures, but also it's for the front end. And what about the development methodology? We have different approaches. We can go agile. We can go if it's a very big project with the safe approach, that is a distributed agile methodology. Or for all the projects, we can go to waterfall. Environment strategy is also a must for a front-end project, because you need to think on the different environments that you need to use, the development environment, where you are going to test at a functional level. If you are working in a Scrum project, for example, where the product owners are going to test your work, of course, not in the development environment. For the different type of testing, smoke tests or penetration testing, you need also a different environment for different validations. And also, what about the selection of the suitable technologies? Depending on the requirements, on the situation, different concepts, different concerns from the client, you need to pick up a different technology for the front end. It's not only a must of, because we are used to work always with, for example, Angular or React. That's what we are going to select. You need to research, you need to think, you need to rational why you are going to select this or that technology. And in the end, this is the target for any project. So we need to deliver a reliable and quality solution. So like in any other project, why front-end help? Well, because this is not happening. In a lot of cases, this is not happening, and this is the reality. This is a phrase that I used in the past. I like it personally. So most of the times, a front-end project is considered only as a bunch of web pages, mainly for the product owners, that quickly demands visual results with no time for a proper start. For me, sometimes a lot of people, even technical people not related to the front end or to the web world, think that front end are only HTML pages, JavaScript, and nothing else. Maybe styles, look and feel, nothing about user experience, of course, and show me everything as soon as possible. So sadly, this is what happening with different clients I've been working on, not with all of them. This is a common scenario, but it's not happening in every place. But a lot of times the clients want quick results. Okay, I want to see this as soon as possible, and they know that it's feasible. And also something that is happening that a lot of times developers are driven by this situation. So what I'm saying here, that developers are part of the problem? No, not at all. It's depending on the technology culture of the client, also because of the experience of developers, if we have architects, the technical experience of product owners, if they are focusing only on delivering functionality and not on doing it properly. So it's about the culture around what is the web world. For me, even something that we need to do in our chapters, and it is the same for every other company that want to have a chapter or a community of practice or focus on different technologies, is that you need to mentor, you need to explain or translate your experience in these different projects to different audiences. So as an example, even here in Spain, we have mascot is front-end and full stack help. So that was the origin of the idea of creating this presentation. And even we have a newsletter that using this mascot, and most of the times the message is again the same, that this is not only about HTML, CSS, and that's all. We need here a lot of different things that we are going to see. So the latest thing is that 2 years ago, as I mentioned at the beginning, in OpenSlava, my presentation was solely front-end architecture, and the concepts were more or less the same situation. But in this case, well, with more experience and shifting to using different methodologies that we are going to see later briefly, I think that our work has been improved. So, how did this started? It's, well, I had a mission, more or less I had a request. We had a project with problems and we needed an architect to fix them. And so the message, it was say the front end, and well, as always, more or less, I'm the happy one there. So let's see what is happening. But the reality, 5 minutes later, when they explained what was happening, the reality was like in panic mode. So happy, not at all. And one important thing, because this is about not only about the front end itself, it's about the digital journey. So when we are working with a client, with the technologies, the methodologies, how they can improve the processes, how they are working, how they are delivering. So you can see in all of these concepts, it's not only about writing code. And sometimes it's the only consideration that the developers can have in mind because they don't have time to think on anything else. So when I started in this project, those were the major pain points. No methodology, no architecture, of course, no team. With that, I mean that we had a group of developers trying to do whatever they could. Everything was driven by the user. So yes, we were using Safe somehow, and we had sprints. And after each sprint, we have all developers had to demo. And in the end, the only thing that mattered was showing results, but only visual results. And of course, because when you are working in a project where you have component teams and not feature teams, so the difference between them is not subtle, but in the end is that we have a front-end team with front-end developers dedicated to the specific task. And you always need to interact with another teams, mainly API team, dependencies with a microservices team, or in the end, the backend, because you are not working alone, mainly in web projects. And also, when you start in a project, always you are the new one, then the new one, you need to ask where are the things, where's the code, well, what are you using, why are you using this, do you have any rationale behind this selection, where are the unit tests, where do you have defined the test cases, and of course, where is the documentation? As you can imagine, most of the times these topics are not covered, so you don't have any reply for that, at least about the code. So in the end, sometimes what you are feeling in this type of projects, because it's not only 2 or 3 cases in my career, it is more than 10, and it's something that you will try with experience to avoid, because the initial feeling is that you are the enemy. You are always trying to sneak in, try to say, I'm the new. People are always trying to see, okay, this new guy, what he's going to do is going to demonstrate that I was doing this wrongly, or with new ideas, I'm very used to do this in this way, and he's going to propose another ways of working. So part of the digital journey is always to break the resistance from the clients and also from the people you are working with. In very big projects, it's very common to that you are not the only supplier, or your company is not the only one that is working in one specific project. You are working with other companies, and each company has their own interests, their own preferences, their own technologies, their own relationship with the client. but in the end is that you need to work as a team with them. In the moment I am working in a project and I'm in a team, in an architecture team, for example, if I listen, hey, because I'm from this company, I think we're going to do that. Or if they need to show something, a presentation, they use their company logo instead of the logo of the company we are working for. For me, that is something that I learned to avoid. And in the end, there is a big resistance against that. So what's the situation? Again, a nightmare, more or less as always. I needed to deliver results in no time, no sleep, no fun, at the beginning only. And as I've already learned, the most important thing is about methodology. So discover, analyze, this is only a couple of different points. Define the architecture principles, and you need to explain them then, and all the teams need to follow them. Define development standards, because we know that without any guidance, all of them are going to code like they want, like they prefer. And also here, it's only as an example, we are using in Accenture ADA, that is Accenture Delivery Architectures. We have different methodology frameworks. Okay, this is only an example, and I've been using different one in the past, like TOGAF. But in this case, well, I'm an Accenture, I'm using this one that for me it's more than suitable. And what is that? So that is a cube that is defining three main concepts. We are not going to go into too much detail, but for us, the main thing is that we are dividing. It's like divide and conquer. So you don't need to create an assess or a discovery or document the as is, or explain or request for documentation because you had that experience in the past. If you're following a methodology, that will be easier to not to forget a lot of different concepts that maybe you are not related with, and we cannot be an expert on everything. So we can see there that we need to consider the principles and patterns, the capabilities and the components. And only as an example, we can see that that can break down even in more detail. So for me, that was like my starting point. I had different matrices to check what I want to consider in the at the beginning of the project. And for me, the main thing is that where are the principles? No principles? Okay, I'm going to define them. We need to explain to all the different teams in the project at different levels, to different audiences, to business, to technology, that those are the targets that I'm expecting this project. You can talk with them, you can adjust them, you can say, okay, this is not so important now, but at least you need to start with a definition of your activities, like what is important for you. So in this case, in one specific project, we explain that those are our targets. Service-oriented, secure, scalable, resilient, and you can see that more or less, this is not directly related to the front end, but front end is part of this project. So in the other way, the front end needs to be considered in all these major topics. And again, keep following the methodology, but very quickly, like any other methodology, I insist on that. This is an example, and we are using ADA in Accenture. It's very important to reuse the reference blueprints and stacks. You don't need to start from scratch. For example, my specialty is a front end. This is what I've been doing in the latest 4 years. But before that, I was working in the mobile world. More or less, I can consider that I know something. But what about data management? Well, I'm not an expert on that, but I need to consider all the data concepts. So that is the meaning of having a blueprint, to having like a checklist. Okay, I need to consider this and this and this and that. Also the same for technology stacks. As always, again, automate as you can. So part of your own methodology is to follow the methodology and apply patterns and good practices to focus on the main topics. The main topic is what I shown before, and now we are going to go a bit down in the methodology, and let's talk a bit more focus on the front end. So that is not a web page. That is not HTML and JavaScript and CSS only. We need to consider an application, and I'm not talking here specifically about single-page application or progressive or server-side rendering application, is that we need to consider at software level the project structure, state management, the models, API consumers, reusable components, and this needs to follow the different patterns. But for me, it's something that when you are going to implement this in a specific technology, for example, Angular, you have it very easy to create that with different services, with a lazy loading, with the routing, all those concepts, you can get the advantage of using those and not thinking only that you have the typical monolith in the front end. So there are different approaches to break down the monolith. So we have currently the microservices approach, that it's a good one, and mainly with the latest update of Webpack 5, where we have the model federation. But well, that is another topic, but can be applied here, even the microservices architecture pattern to the front end. And what about the major topics not related directly to the code, but depending on the code? Security. Security, what is that? That was the question. No, security, that is a concern for the backend. Okay. And what about the vulnerabilities, the cross-site scripting, the injection of code, not parameterizing your the user input? And even we have an organization like OWASP 10 that is telling you what is the top 10 for the front-end technologies. So security is a major topic for us that we need always to cover. And it's not something to think on, okay, I finish my work and you are going to execute different penetration tests and later give me the results and I will fix them. I think that is not the way. That is the reactive way. We need to be proactive. And also for me, the security is part of the development and the front-end developers itself. So accessibility, well, reusability, quality, testing, performance. Again, this is part of the good practice that we need to consider in a front-end project. Related to that is, well, what is the branches strategy? What is the static analysis that you are going to use to check how your project is progressing? The repositories, are you using GitLab, GitHub, Packet? What are you using? You need to define the different processes. So the different environments. And how many environments do we need? Do we need one? No. That one will be for development at least. You want to have productions and the code in developer laptops. This is what we found in one of the examples. But in the end, you need to define your infrastructure, your continuous integration and continuous delivery. So different concepts, again, that it's related directly with the front end. And about SEO, it's something that is always happening at the end of the project. So we create a project and later we discover that the technology we use is not suitable for SEO. For example, a single page application, a very big application, we finish this perfectly, following everything, and now we detect that Google crawler or Microsoft crawler are telling us that our page are always the same, so we are receiving a penalization for that. Are we going to change the technology after finishing the project? And this is something that in one of the projects I was working on, the meaning of migrating an AngularJS project to Angular, it was only because of the SEO. Because 2 years later, they discovered that SEO for them was a must, and it was not possible because they had a single page application, and it's very difficult to achieve a very high result. And about UX, that more or less most of the people think that is about the UI, images, design, styles, and it's a very big topic. And again, something that is always like a reactive situation is regulation laws. You are using this application in Europe, you need to consider some type of laws, and the laws are different in other countries. And also you need to integrate with the external services. So in the end, all those topics that we have here are things that we need to consider since the beginning. That need to be part of your technical design, or at least if the only and mandatory command is show me something as soon as possible, but you need to have this in mind, and you need to press to the business for trying to give the importance that those topics have. And again, going down in the technology, and for the front-end audience that we have here, this is an example. And this is about a reference stack I mentioned previously, like another blueprint. So this is the reference stack that we are proposing in our organization. And it's the simplified version. So when I want to check or analyze a project, I'm always using this. This comes from different refinations, and we are considering here different technologies, the three major ones, like Angular, React, and Vue for the front end, and Node, Express, and Angular Universal in the backend, but also security. It's part of the things I'm expecting to see in a front-end project at code level. What about the back? The unit testing. And what about the tool to check that what you are doing has quality? And the code coverage, the end-to-end testing. Those are the major topics for me that need to be covered in the front end. So for me, I don't need to be an expert on React. I don't need to be an expert on Vue to analyze a front-end project. Of course, if I know about them, that will be better. But at least I have this like matrix to check, okay, you're using this, you're using that. Later we can go into more detail, but those are the proposal for us. And you can maybe have another technology. For the backend, for example, you can have an X monorepositories. That is a completely valid, but so you are considering server-side rendering, you're considering monorepository, that's fine. But at least I need to know what you have in the front end. I'm not an expert on Vue. I want to see what you have here. And what we found in this project that we are using as a reference. Okay. Fundamental pillars, yes, HTMLs. And version control, they were using Git and GitHub. Front technologies, it was a React project, and also about the build, and they were using Node, but with a very outdated technologies. And again, nothing about security, nothing about the bug testing. Well, just because it was part of the default project wizard. And for me, it's something that is always happening. How to fix that? Because, okay, this is what I found, and how to fix that. Again, following the methodology is another topic, was the DevOps or DevSecOps, the CI/CD. And this is our minimum reference for the front end. And again, what we found, nothing, absolutely nothing. That was a sad reality, is that developers were creating the build in their own machines. And well, you can imagine the difficult situation, how to explain the client that my team or the team of my company were doing this. So how to fix that? Start working on that. Following methodology, again, and insist on that, is that this is the situation. So let's start with the major topic not to cover. So testing, start fixing the unit testing, start considering the code coverage, start considering the end-to-end testing, defining not only at technology level also, but at the definition of the test use cases. Start introducing the concept of SonarQube, of the quality, in this case with a SonarQube tool, and also consider security. The things that we can do about security is in the front end by developers is to check the dependencies. If you have, for example, in your package.json, different dependencies that are outdated or they have vulnerabilities. So, for example, one of the tools is npm audit that can easily tell you that if you have vulnerabilities in your project. I found 2,000 vulnerabilities. Half of them were development, but more than 100 were production vulnerabilities in a project that was in production, because they were using a very old React version. The next step, it was to fix React version. That was an upgrade, was very difficult, a lot of effort there. We need to put an order in the styles. we need to put an order also in the version that they were using for the for Node. It was not even the LTS version; it was a very old-fashioned Node version for building, and keep working and incrementing on the analysis and the work, introducing Lighthouse for performance, and SonarLint and SLint, and putting there an order again. So if you have SLint in your project with 1,000 warnings and you are not paying any attention to that, that's not the way. You need to check that and introducing rules that if you have any warning, you are not allowed to build. That cannot happen since the beginning, so you need to do that progressively. And the latest tools were SAST and DAST security tools like Veracode and Black Tag to check the vulnerabilities, not only in your dependencies, but also in your own source code. And about the CI/CD, so those are the different tools that we introduce. So part of the development work by developers were checking the rules, unit testing, audit for security, and also in the pipeline, we wanted to have SonarQube and Lighthouse. And quickly, the evidences, it's very important. So how can you show that you are progressing? It's something that should be considered since the beginning, but we couldn't do that. So after a couple of weeks, we could show something, and this was the result we had. It could be seen as something not so critical, but it was the first thing not so critical that we could show to the client. And working on the way that I explained previously, 6 months later, this is what we had. The quality gates on green, a minimum pipeline working, and this project didn't stop there. So at least that after this presentation to the client, they told us, okay, you are doing progress, you are getting results. And what I would like to explain now is about some of the lessons learned, because in any project you have different lessons to learn. And for me, what you can see there is part of the mandatory concepts to follow in a front-end project. For me, a front-end project is more than a bunch of web pages. And a bunch of web pages, this was a phrase from a product owner when I was explaining that we needed to change the way we were working. Quality and security are not optional. If you are not considering this, and when the project is finished or close to be finished, you have a lot of technology debt that you need later to fix. Methodology, good practices, principles. So for me, DevOps, DevSecOps, for me, it's a must to fix this front-end health that I'm very used to find. And well, yes, front-end can be fixed even if it's using JavaScript. So for me, more or less, that's all. And well, the end of the story is yes, we saved the front-end again. So thank you very much. Gracias in Spanish, and I will try to say it. Děkuji velmi pěkně.
All right. Thank you so much, José, for that beautiful kick off the third day and that presentation. The cool thing is also we had a question coming in from Fran Perez Gomez, which I also appreciate because if I'm not mistaken, Fran has been here for the 3 days. He's a big fan, is also supportive of the community, has been here, and he asked a question about how to fix it. And then afterwards, you dove into the fixing, and he also said, well, my question got answered. So which is really good that you just dove in. Looking at the time and also the new speakers, we can't do any more questions, José, but they can, of course, reach out to you. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it yourself.
A lot.
There you go. There you go.
I didn't know about the budget for the Nintendo Switch, so I will check that later.
Oh, sneaky. So we're waiting for the third day. Like, now I got the tips from Marnik. Great. Go ahead. Go there. Claim your reward. Like I said in the beginning, also the other ways, if you do claim your reward, doesn't mean you have the Nintendo yet. Because it means that you're in the lottery to get the Nintendo. It's a really important one.
Okay. So thank you very much.
Yeah, have fun. Thank you so much, José. Also for people in the chat with the questions, also complimenting José's Slovak. They say if you come back next year, your Slovak will be fluent. And in the meantime, moving straight along, looking at the time, respecting the program. The next speakers, I have to say speakers, it's 3 of them. I don't know if they're all going to talk, but they're here for maybe moral support, or they're all going to say something. I'm going to let it up to surprise and chance. They're already smiling, and so they're ready to go. They're going to talk about, because we talked about the front end hell, and we're building, and we got the project fixed, and we built something very beautiful with everything that José said. But then you still have to market it. You have to make it look beautiful, and you want to be able to do cool stuff. And the good news is that's next up in our program. They call it personalized advertising with Mackevision's AWS-powered rendered on-demand system. That's a whole mouthful to say we're going to make and show beautiful things. It's combining the power of AWS cloud computing with the Unreal Engine. Like I said, I'm not an expert, but Unreal always gets me excited because I also see it a lot in gaming, and it's always a great game that runs on the Unreal Engine, but probably doesn't have anything to do with that. But they're going to talk about how to make beautiful things and probably amaze us. The gentleman I'm talking about, I'm going to try to pronounce it right, is Georg Wieland, Daniel Cvikevic, you're probably going to correct me, and Timo Fuertsch from Mackevision. And without further ado, gentlemen, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Marnik, for the short and nice introduction. The title is quite complex, but at the end, it's not about gaming today. What Georg and Timo and I are presenting, it's about using gaming technology for more industry use cases based on using also or leveraging cloud technology together with real-time rendering technology. So if we go one slide further, I will present you quickly the agenda, what we intend to present you today. I will start with a short introduction of who we are at Mackevision, what we are doing there, and why this is relevant in nowadays. Then Georg will continue by diving deeper into our render-on-demand system to describe you what we have done there. And then in the third chapter, I will describe or present you a short example where it is used already today, because we are not talking about the vision, we are talking about something which is already up and running. And at the end, of course, all us together, we will be there for question and answers. So we can immediately switch to the next slide, please, Georg. And the question is, maybe you have already heard about Mackevision. We are a company existing already for over than 25 years now, focusing really on 3D visualization technology. We started our, let's say, history mainly in the automotive area, because there was the challenge first existing to visualize the high complex car in all the different variants, and that was also the reason why CGI technology was out of a sudden the solution to solve that. And from time to time, of course, other industries got attracted by that technology, using it. And in the meantime, we work not only for automotive industry, we work for fashion, retail, and also we have one department which is to be mentioned in the visual effects area where we work for Hollywood and entertainment. And the benefit out of that section is mainly coming up when we talk about fashion industry visualizations, because the simulations and the characters which are needed to visualize fashion mainly are developed in our house for a lot of years now already in the visual effects area. And of course, we benefit right now to use it in this industry section now as well. At the end, we develop, implement and run solutions, and we are not talking about the final image. We really talk about content creation at scale. Please, Georg, go to the next slide. Thank you. And that's what we call dynamic visual content solutions. And what dynamic visual content solutions is all about, I will show you, or we will show you in a short video, which is coming now.
For a world in which products are digital, digitally engineered, tested, and brought to market. For this world, we deliver the building blocks. We virtualize, we visualize, and we revolutionize marketing, enabling companies from any sector to keep up with digital demands. This is Mackevision, and here is how we bring companies to the next digital level. From coffee cups to turbines up to cars. Products today not only exist in reality, they also live as a set of data, or how we put it, a data model. A product's data model brings companies of any branch forward in many ways. It speeds things up, it increases impact, and massively drives efficiency. Let's go a little deeper here. Creating a data model means defining a single source of truth. It's a product's digital DNA, or digital twin. This opens up for coherent simulation, representation, and adaptation to any use case. Developing and testing become far easier since everyone has the same basis. Products can be staged in complete variants and at any given quality level, which also means marketing is streamlined, because market-specific product visuals can be distributed via any channel to any customer in real time. So no matter the product, the data model is the foundation of success. We build it and we bring it to life. Mackevision masters every visualization technique, from offline rendering for high-end imagery to flexible real-time rendering for digital marketing. And we build tailored solutions that combine both. We feed global marketing engines with pre-rendered high-quality assets that are cloud-based and distributed on demand. This is the idea of dynamic modular content, the basis for one-to-one communication. Since we pioneer new ways of production, we also innovate our own technological components. One example is the Data Hub, an efficiency machine for all our clients to build upon our years of experience. We tailor digital contents to the needs of any technical pickup system in the world, so that every user can enjoy an endless stream of captivating experiences on any device. We lay the foundations of digital success with a data model. We create tailored visual contents with all given techniques for any given use case. We distribute contents whenever and wherever needed. And of course, we advise throughout the entire process with our CGI consultancy. This is our offer. This is Dynamic Visual Content Solutions, an invitation to companies from all sectors to keep up with the world in which products are digital.
And why this is so relevant in the present mainly is also maybe the fact that in 2021 the digital ad spendings exceeded the first time the 50% share of the total ad spend amount. And therefore, this gives us also a feeling that this dynamic content needs are increasing constantly, because if all the money in digital ad spends goes into the digital channels, of course, digital content is needed. And in the digital, let's say, conversation with prospects, of course, it is important to have as compelling and as meaningful dialogues based on personalized content at the end. And how that works is now getting introduced by Georg, and what we have done in the past to achieve a main core enabler.
Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, my name is Georg. I've been with Mackevision for the last 3 years. I currently work as a technical architect and product owner on various real-time solutions. My background is also in visual effects. I spent a lot of years in CGI for Hollywood movies, and always been fascinated by the combination of art and technology, and that's why I'm also so excited to be part of Mackevision and yeah, combine the art and the technology here. So what we see when we talk to our clients, they all face an increasing demand for personalized content. They want more images, better images, and they don't want to just have like broadcast communication, streaming content from one to many, but they want to have individual personalized communications with their customers. And this is really only possible, I think, if we deploy a real-time visualization, like we use game engine, and then combine that with on-demand distribution. So we don't pre-produce images and then just put them on a disk, and then whenever it's needed, it gets served. But we really produce the content only at the moment when the content is needed, because otherwise we would produce way too much content that will never be used, or it's literally not possible to produce so much personalized content. So when we started the project, it was clear that the task is to not only configure products. I mean, Daniel showed that, and especially in the automotive industry, you have very complex products. If you talk about, let's say, one BMW 1 Series, there are literally millions and millions of BMW 1 Series with different colors and paints and interiors and wheels and sports packages and chrome parts, and you name it, everything is configurable. So the visualizations are also like millions and millions of different visualizations. But we don't want to stop at configuring the product. We want to configure the entire experience, like different camera angles, perspectives, personalized videos, and also configure the whole staging of the product, the environments, the time of the day, the weather. You want to customize it to different countries, different markets, and then also the content needs to be produced for different endpoints, like mobile phones, desktop, print, so all different formats and resolutions. And if you talk about specifically about advertising, then there's also a lot of stuff that gets laid on top, like headlines and logos and prices in different countries and languages and buttons. So this is really the task that we had at hand. And with our background in the automotive industry and visualization in general, we also had a number of projects where we visualize different environments. Here you can see one street environment in different times of the day, different weather conditions. And in the past, we also used this for training autonomous vehicles, because manufacturers, they don't want their autonomous vehicles to have to drive millions or like millions and millions of miles on the street to train their sensors, but they can really let their virtual vehicles or their sensors drive through those virtual worlds to get trained. And exactly the same technology, because it's all using Unreal Engine and real-time technology, we can deploy for our on-demand rendering. Now, let's get a little bit more technical. Here's a super simplified architecture overview, and we get a little bit more detailed in a bit. We have a client on the top left. Mostly it's some sort of website that's requesting content. So the request gets to our API. It would be like some configuration code that includes which product, which configuration option, in which environment, which format, resolution, and so on. So this is all the configuration code that gets fed into the API. And then we check if that image or that video, that content already exists in the cache. If yes, it gets served to the client right away. Otherwise, the requests would get added to a render queue. And then an Unreal Engine running on GPU instances in the cloud take those requests one by one, render those images, and serve them back to the client. Here is a little bit more detail. It's still very much simplified, but you can see some of the native AWS components that we are using. So all the requests go through CloudFront to our API gateway. We use Lambda functions to do different calculations, including the resolving of the configuration. And then those render requests get added to the SQS queue. So here we accumulate all the requests for content. And then we have GPU instances. And here we have the Unreal Engine running on those GPU instances, taking those requests, rendering the images, and storing them on S3 bucket from where it gets served to the clients. Maybe two more points on this overview. We also use auto-scaling groups. Depending on the number of requests that we receive, we can automatically scale up the number of GPU instances or scale them down again when the demand gets reduced again. And we also have developed a plugin in the Unreal Engine that we can use for the communication between the Unreal Engine and the AWS infrastructure. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. So I think the beautiful thing is that all of this is set up as infrastructure as code with those native AWS services. We can pretty much spin up the whole system with a press of a button. It's all agnostic to different clients. We can deploy different Unreal Engines for different clients in this infrastructure, or we can also deploy it on different accounts. Microservices get orchestrated with a cloud formation stack. The components are all managed and serverless. We use GitHub CI/CD for continuous integration, deployment, and automated tests. And yeah, the API supports, as I mentioned, like different pictures and videos. We can produce PDFs and zips and all sorts of things. Now, the plugin that we're using for the communication between Unreal and AWS, we've made that publicly available through open source. You can access it and download it on Accenture's GitHub page. It's called MV Unreal AWS. And it handles, as I said, the communication between Unreal and AWS. So it receives the messages from the SQS queue. It uploads the resulting images or videos to the S3 storage. And then we implemented some performance reporting using X-Ray and logging using CloudWatch. So feel free to download it, implement it in your Unreal project and use it in connection with AWS. It was also this development was partially sponsored by Epic Games. So thanks to Epic at this point. And overall, yeah, it was or still is an excellent collaboration between those parties. When we produce images on demand, performance is a super crucial factor. We want to deliver images pretty much immediately. So here is just a short overview of some of the aspects that we take into account. Obviously, the content itself, our artists, they have a lot of experience in, on the one hand, creating highly realistic visuals, but on the other hand, optimize performance so that those images get distributed or rendered in milliseconds, really. So image resolution is obviously a key factor when it comes to the render times, the light setup complexity. We use ray tracing typically, so for very realistic rendering of shadows and reflections. This consumes some time, but Unreal Engine offers some good features to trade off on the one hand realism with performance. And I think, yeah, one point to note is we also deployed NVIDIA's DLSS, deep learning super sampling. This allows us to use fewer, render fewer samples and then upsample the image to achieve like a very good visual results, but again, in short amount of time. And then besides the content part, obviously hardware plays a big role. Currently, the public cloud providers such as AWS and also Microsoft and Google Cloud, they typically use the NVIDIA T4 graphic cards for real-time ray tracing computation. This is currently the standard, and for better performance and faster render times, you could also use other graphic cards, but they're only available in private data centers, such as the NVIDIA A14. Let's talk about some of the use cases. So on the right-hand side, and this is pretty much this whole AWS infrastructure using the Unreal Engine to produce content. We send in configuration code that describes the experience and receive those images or videos back. We are using this system for various use cases, such as web car configurators. You go to a website, you configure your dream car, select the colors, the rims, and whatever, and you can already see exactly your car as you want to buy it. We feed digital brochures, like personalized websites with the system. We use it for something we call Digital Asset Studio. It's for marketing professionals who go to a website and configure the content that they need for their marketing campaigns. And then we are also actually currently working on integrating our services and our API to different marketing systems, such as the Adobe Experience Manager, so that we directly feed into the marketing engines with our content. It's not really part of this talk today, but it's also quite nice that the same Unreal application, the same system that we use for the whole on-demand content production, we can also use for interactive experiences. Like, for example, at the point of sales, if you go to a car dealership, or we also use it for fashion. If you want to configure your jacket in the store, you can have a very interactive experience where you can look at the product from all angles interactively and customize it. So this is just another add-on to the system. But now it's been enough talking. I do something that I tell my staff to never do. I'm going to do a live demo. I hope it's going to work. So here you can see the system in action. We have a car that is being rendered with the Unreal Engine, and I can start configuring the color. Like, this is a demo example here. And so it's not a real car, it's our Mackevision car, and we only have a few configuration options, but you get the point. You have a vehicle, and what happens when I click a button? With every click of a button, we are sending, the front end sends a request to our API, and the image is being added to, or the request is being added to the SQS queue, image is being rendered and served back to the front end. And yeah, you can, as I said, you can configure your car as you would typically do. And also we have different environments like that. And so this is more like the content creation, or like the digital asset studio. Like, you can imagine this is the web car configurator. And now if I'm a marketing professional, I want to assemble a marketing package. So I can pick different perspectives of that car. And you can see how on demand those images are being rendered. This is just a preview for now. You can also see how this dynamically changes if I pick a different color. Again, the images are being produced in a different color. We support also movies. It could be like little technical movies to explain certain features, or really TV commercials. And then the marketing professional can pick different formats and resolutions for the output, request those assets, they get rendered, and you can download them. So yeah, this is the system in action. Here is some of the output, like different formats, different resolutions. But yeah, I'm going to hand over to Daniel to take it away and wrap up the talk.
Thank you, George. You can immediately go to the next slide, because I already promised that this is not just a demo, it's already live and running in the real world. And this is an example where we implemented this kind of solution in the sales journey of Rolls-Royce. And as also presented by George, there's also a point of sale configurator running in the local dealer stores at Rolls-Royce. And after the good conversation a client might have had with the sales advisor at Rolls-Royce, he will receive immediately after this conversation, as a reminder or to show and share it with his family, a digital sales brochure based on exact that configuration they were just discussing it at the local retailer. And this is just one, let's say, field of application where technology like this is used. So the combination of real-time technology and cloud to fuel and create content to different touch points along the digital and more digitized sales journeys. And of course, also this brochure exists or contains on the one side still images, different perspectives, but also some animations. But it depends on the definition of the exact use case, what might be needed. And that was pretty much everything what we wanted to present today. And I don't know if there is still time, but thank you already for joining our session here at OpenSlava 21. And in case we still have time, we are open for your questions now. And if you want to work for us, you can just call this guy here mentioned, and then you can apply.
Okay, there you go. So you heard it. Anyone that wants to work for Mackevision after that great presentation, I also enjoyed it very much. And you should bring that car to market. That would be amazing. You said like yeah. No, the previous car. You said like
the other one.
It's a Mackevision car. It's like a super cool design. Everybody's gonna want it. If they can afford it, that's a different story. Thank you so much. But we don't have the we don't really have the time to. Also, the backstage crew is saying that I need to move forward. So for the people watching right now, give them a digital applause. If you have questions, I don't know if you're walking around in the VSF. If you do, connect with the people in the chat or in the networking room, or like I said, connect with them and just go work for the company. And then you can ask all the questions that you want. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I really like the atmosphere also in the background. If the children are just as excited about what you're doing than I just heard, it's amazing. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here and sharing this with us. I hope to see you again next year and have a great weekend. I know it's Thursday, but still enjoy.
Thank you, Moni.
Thank you very much.
For having us.
All right, let's move
Bye-bye.
straight forward. And we have been talking about front end. So we went through hell and we created something. And then we're going to advertise it with beautiful designs like the Mackevision team just showed us. And it's all a reality. Like they showed it with the Rolls Royce, it's already there. But what, and see the bridge I'm making right now, what if we extend that reality? And that's what we're going to talk about. Yes, there's a web thread in this third day of OpenSlava. What if we extend that reality and talk about it with someone who knows all about it, who's an XR capability, XR consumer lead in Europe for ACCENTURE. And he's going to talk about extended reality, the fourth computing wave. So let's extend that reality with, and again, like I said, this is the challenging 2 days with the name. What I'm talking about is Fadi. You got to forgive me here. Chehimi, I hope it's right. If not, just let me know. So if you're ready, also for the people, I'm not forgetting you. I know you're in the chat, which is great, I really appreciate that you're showing the love. I see Mirka, Margareta, Will, Fran, Ivan, Gabriella, Serka, Jana, Daniela, Martin, and so many more already giving the love to the speakers, loving the presentations, even trying out Spanish like José was trying out Slovak. I love the vibe on this third day. And in the meantime, I see my backstage is full and we have the expert on extended reality. So I'm not going to take up more of your time because I knew you're also on a schedule. So if you're ready, give me a thumbs up. Yup, he's starting to share the screen, so I'll take this as a thumbs up. Fadi, take it away. Enjoy yourself. The stage.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So hi everyone. Sorry for the delay. We just had a couple of technical issues. So it's my pleasure to be here today. My name is Fadi Chehimi. I am the extended reality capability lead in Europe and the extended reality for consumer experiences lead in Europe. I'm based in the UK. I look after the business in the UK from that aspect. And yeah, today I would love to talk to you about the future of technology and the fourth evolution, if you want to call it, in the computing era. Before jumping in, I just want to set the scene. Let's just make sure the slides are moving. Yeah, all right. So since our first existence as a species, we humans have always interacted with the world around us in its 3D shape and 3D form. We utilized our different senses to process and interact with information and other mates that surrounded us. We noted changes in the grass patterns in the distance, motion, or where others are gazing, fearing to be hunted and eaten by beasts sneaking by. We listened to sounds from all directions to scan and locate our next hunting destination. We used landmarks to annotate and find our habitats, tribes, and applying our instinctive spatial awareness. And the same senses still serve us today. I mean, in every aspect of our life, to develop in every way. We learn better when we touch and manipulate things, and when we are studying and experiencing what we are doing, that creates what's called muscle memory. We connect and collaborate with people more effectively when we meet face to face and talk and listen, pick up post-it notes and exchange ideas and emotions. We remember trips we go to by some sort of emotional attachment to the time, the place, the feelings of that we had, the gush of the air on our face, etc., etc. I know I'm making you nostalgic to pre-COVID world, but bear with me a little bit, and we'll talk about how these things will manifest themselves in the virtual world as well as to what we are used to in the physical world. So it's very rare that one sense or one part of our nervous system works alone to interact in anything that we go through in our real life and to respond to any situation. The most simplest example I can give you is that when we are walking on the street, it is our eyes basically scanning and seeing where we're going. It's our proprioception system, or basically the senses of where our body parts are, help us basically feel the ground and control how our arms are moving to balance things. It is our vestibular system in our ears, which help us to keep balance and moving. So it's a combination of multiple sensory systems working together to enable us to work effectively and complete the most mundane tasks in our daily life, just like walking. Now, although this is the case, all kinds of media known to humans till date have always been flat in 2D boxes, utilizing one or two senses in isolation, just for us to be able to understand the context. Books and newspaper entertain our eyes, radios sync to our ears, cinema and TV luckily engage both of them, eyes and ears. Internet and mobile carry basically formats from the past and make them more accessible, but still serving both the eyes and ears. What about other senses? Tactile, proprioception, balance, feeling of being there with other people, emotional attachment to things. Well, this is where we believe XR is poised to fill the void and introduce a totally new category of experiences that we can be engaged in and emotionally immersed. But yeah, sorry, I'm just playing this video. I hope it plays nicely. We'll see how it goes.
A new dimension of experience is emerging, one that blends our physical and digital.
Sorry, can you hear any audio? If anyone can just...
Yes, we can. We can hear the audio. Right. It's not going super smooth, but we can hear the audio.
All right, you can hear the audio of the video?
Yeah.
All right.
And the images are going a bit slower, but it's okay. Now the audio is gone. It was there, now it's gone.
Please roll the window down. Creating more personalized and memorable forms of brand engagement. Vividly bringing products to life in accessible new ways. and empowering consumers to shop and buy whenever and wherever they want. The opportunity to turn imagination into reality is now.
Sorry, I know that when we did the preparation for the presentation, I did tell the guys I don't have videos to play with audio, but I couldn't resist not to play this as just basically a teaser to people and to get them to know what XR is about. So apologies if it didn't play well, but hopefully I'll explain things throughout the slides. Right, okay. So what you've seen is just an example of immersive experiences that could be created using different forms and different formats of extended reality. Before explaining what extended reality is, just want to set the scene here. It is a set fact that now people and businesses have formed new habits in the last 18 months as a result of COVID. Remote working is an expectation, and virtual client workshops, meetings, presentations like these ones are just like the norms. Consumers are moving in droves to digital channels, buying virtual goods for thousands of dollars, or NFT, if you've heard of NFTs, doing social shopping, hanging out with friends, etc. More and more production lines are facing strict rules about occupancy in the space and hygiene and social distancing, etc. How can we rapidly train employees on all of these changes while still remain productive and still basically retain these employees? How can we connect with the consumers and create new content and services that really engage them and hook them with the brand? How can we do all of this whilst keeping costs down and reducing downtime? Well, we believe that XR can help overcome these challenges and fuel business growth to our clients and basically get over the competition. But what is XR exactly? In order to understand XR, we have to look at its building blocks. So I think many of you have come across these acronyms: VR, AR, MR. So VR is virtual reality. This is where we are completely disconnected from the physical world around us, and we are immersed inside a computer synthesized environment. Everything is computer generated inside that world. AR is augmented reality. So this is where we are still in our physical space, but our physical space is enhanced with some virtual content that overlays it. This could be information in our field of view, or could be things lying on the table, or the robot here on the floor. MR is mixed reality. This is augmented reality on steroids. So not only we get the digital overlays in our field of view, but actually these digital overlays understand the environment around us. This robot understands the construct or the surfaces of the chair, and it's actually standing on it rather than going through it. It would understand that there is shade, and then some of that shade will basically apply on that robot. It will understand that there is light, and then some of that light will be somehow augmented in it. And this is what mixed reality is. So it's mixing their digital and the real in a more, let's say, realistic way. And XR is actually an umbrella term that encompasses all of these three technologies together. It goes from the complete virtual on the left-hand side to the complete realistic on the right-hand side. Now, in order for you to experience XR, there are multiple ways, and there are multiple tools. Some of them are headset-based, some of them are mobile-based, some of them are web-based. You can have them on your desktop, etc. I will not dive into all of these things, but I'm putting this slide here just for you to know that there are different tools out there that would enable people to get into the XR space, whether it is from a development and creation perspective, or whether it is from experiencing the content and the stories that are being told using that medium. So from Accenture perspective, we see XR in 5 different lenses. these are our main offerings that we offer to our clients. AR connected worker. So this is where a person in the field, an engineer, a maintenance person, a field service specialist who is in the field, let's say in a mine or in maintaining electricity generators, etc. So this person is empowered with the ability of having an expert who is remote to be able to see what he can see and potentially give him support and annotate things for them to do. So suddenly every person, even if that person is just like has been on the job for a week, can have access to these experts and can basically fulfill the task as experts would do, because these experts have access through the AR headset for them to be able to see what they see and complete the job. Now, think about this as well, not only from a task completion perspective, but also reporting. So if an engineer has finished a job, they can tap on the headset, take a photo of that, command, basically speak some commands, and then suddenly that becomes like the report that he has completed this job. And this is the proof, and it goes and get updated to the cloud. In everyday life, what engineers do is they would take pictures, then later in the day, they would go and remember what they have done and write a report, try to download the pictures, upload them, which is like a very time-consuming job. The next offering is immersive learning. This is experiential learning. This is the thing that ties to the narrative at the beginning of the presentation about us humans learn by doing, okay? Immersive learning is using virtual reality. So you put on a virtual, a VR headset, and then you are in a simulation of some form and of some form. This simulation can help you learn things like whether it is soft skills or hard skills. I'll show you some examples in a minute. But the most important part here to keep in mind is that this is a way that engineers, leaders, managers can learn different skills, maintaining a particular part, for example, or assembling a car in a factory, or even learning how to deal with colleagues, like learning different leadership styles or inclusion and diversity topics, etc. Then we go to the third offering, which is XR for collaboration and events. So this is where we bring people together inside a virtual environment to meet, like the one that you are in at the moment. You are not seeing that inside virtual reality headset, but it comes into the same context of people coming together into some space, have that spatial awareness, seeing other people wandering around, moving around, etc., etc. And these kind of environments can be useful for meetings, events like this, conferences, design thinking workshops, etc., etc. And then the fourth one is virtual research. This is mostly tailored offering for retailers. The idea here is to be able to simulate a store or a layout of products before they are done in physical life. So rather than retailers creating a physical mock-up store to test if this particular layout would be useful or not, they would use virtual reality, which is way quicker and cheaper. And you can bring people in and then test and evaluate if their interactions and perceptions of the space is useful or not. And then the third and the last one is XR for consumer experiences and consumer journeys. This is where we have things like virtual stores, I'll show you some examples, or virtual spaces, virtual try-ons using augmented reality, and so on and so forth. So these are the 5 offerings that we've got at Accenture. Now I'll just walk through them in more details and then give you some examples. So I did touch on immersive learning. As I said, it's experiential learning using virtual reality, where you can learn soft skills and you can learn hard skills. The most important part here is that your senses are completely immersed in here. It's not only watching a video, it's not only reading, It's actually a combination of all of your senses coming together in order for you to be able to learn and assess a situation. One example I have for you is a project that we have developed for Sempra, and we are now in phase 2 of this project. So this is a virtual reality experience which trains the field engineers on how to maintain the electricity poles in forests. Now, this is in California, and there are lots of fires that happen in California. So if these electricity poles not maintained properly, I mean, that causes danger and potential cause for fire. Generally, engineers will spend like a day or two training and learning how to maintain these things. And as you can see, they are in a classroom, they look at some video presentations, some person tell them things. But what we've done is actually put them inside that space in VR and let them follow the instructions of maintaining a particular pole as they would do in real life, plus using the realistic tools that they would be using in real life, which allows them to potentially learn how to use the tool correctly and even make mistakes. Because if you make mistake inside VR, that's fine. You are actually learning. You're not going to harm yourself or cause any danger or potential fire. So that's one example I'm sharing with you. XR for collaboration, as I said, we all miss being together physically. The next best thing beyond Zoom and video conferences is to have some form of 3D playfulness, getting people together in one space, like you guys have experienced with virtual show floor or showcase. Do things in a productive way, collaborate in solving problems, or just like having fun. One leading platform that we have internally is called ICP, Accenture Immersive Collaboration Platform. So this is one of our accelerators that we have developed internally, and we are working with the clients on it. You can bring up to 25 people into the space. And as you can see, these spaces are really high fidelity spaces, true to life digital twins. We have more than 20 Accenture offices being recreated in their digital formats, in their digital twins, and imported into this platform. Now, ICP is just one platform. We've got many other platforms that we work with, mainly Altspace from Microsoft at the moment. And the fidelity is different from one platform to another. And then virtual try-ons. So 40% of any sales that happen online, unfortunately, ends up being returned. This is a known fact and a big problem for retailers in the e-commerce space because of the logistics, because of the skewed sales results and estimations, etc. And it's just not environmentally friendly, right? Of handling the shipment and the returns and logistics of warehouses, etc., etc. So giving people the ability of having a personal experience with a product before they buy it, given that they cannot do it in store, would be the next best thing after just looking at pictures on the web and that's it. Trying things on yourself, like glasses, necklaces, even jackets and garments are possible now. It's better than you just seeing it on another model. Trying things around you as well, like the famous IKEA Place app, which allows you to put IKEA furniture in your living room and see if the colors and the patterns fit what you've got, etc., whether it is big enough or too big, etc. So this is where virtual try-ons come in. One of our examples of this has been applied to SEAT in Spain. Now, this application has two flavors. One flavor of you actually augmenting a virtual car in your space, and you can walk around that virtual car. But my favorite second part is actually this one that I'm going to show you now. This is not a virtual car that you see. This is actually a real car in a dealership. And you go around this car and you change the color immediately on the car. You don't need to see it on another one. So just think of all the configurations that you can apply on a car and all the different simulations. You can simulate turning on the lights. You can change the wheels. You can change the color. You can apply any other accessories. Now, this is in my opinion, this is one of the best examples of how augmented reality can really help and work in this space for retailers. Another one is virtual spaces or virtual stores. So all of us now are used to being tucked in the Zoomiverse, as they call it, and attending conferences and meetings, etc. And when it comes to shopping, again, we are used to just browsing and looking through lists of things and selecting one. But this has not been fulfilling to most of those who have gone online. So many people miss the physical aspects of being in a real store, and I don't envy them. We are humans. We notice things around us. Something attracts us on the shelf there. We walk towards it. We look. We pick it up, try it, and see it, and then we may decide to buy it. These things are not available on websites, and this is what virtual spaces and virtual stores are there to help. So when you think about a video game, people go to a video game and play, walk around, interact with other players, pick up ammunitions and weapons, etc., and they go together in one mission. But if you take the same analogy and apply it in a store setup where I go with my wife, maybe a friend, together into a virtual store, which is in 3D, we can walk around and we can look at products. I can pick one of these products. I love that red jacket there, so I walk towards it. I walk towards it rather than just like pick it from a list. I call my wife, hey, come, darling, have a look. What do you think of this? She said, try it on you. And then actually I can put it on my avatar. Looks nice on you. Then I buy it. That's a complete different experience of you just scrolling through a list and then you buy it. These kind of spaces are booming at the moment, and many industries are exploring how they can leverage these, whether it is as websites or whether it is on actual games like Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft, etc. The purpose of these kind of spaces is not just to transact, but actually to connect with prospect clients, which is a mind shift in how we can make this kind of experiences successful. I'll share with you just an example of one space that we are doing at the moment. This is a project that is currently being finalized for an event called Exterior. So Exterior is one of the first extended reality for digital fashion conferences. You can go and register here. It's on the 30th of November till the 2nd of December. This event talks about digital fashion in general and how extended reality fits within that space. And for that event, we are developing 3 beautiful, surreal environments where people can go around and actually look at digital dresses, learn about the artists, engage in an immersive environment that is out of this world, and just like find treasures being hidden in different places. All of this open to the public, so anyone can jump in and join. So I can go there, I can go with my wife again, go around, explore. So it becomes more of like an excursion or like visiting a museum, right? Rather than just like shopping on a website. It's just reframing the concept of selling in an experiential way. And then I'll just quickly cover our XR capability and then open up for questions if people have questions. So XR at Accenture is big, and we've got more than 350 people all around the world focusing and specializing in creating XR experiences. We've got developers, we've got 3D artists, we've got strategists, project managers, consultants, etc., etc. And we work in all of the different verticals, from manufacturing to oil and gas to consumer goods to fashion to automotive, etc., etc. And we don't do this by ourselves. We have a host of partners in the industry that we have forged and formed relationships and partnerships with in order to enable us to deliver the best kind of solutions to our clients to get the best value out of extended reality. And as I said, we've got different capabilities from technology, architecture, advisory, and strategy. We've got studios who can quickly tinker and evaluate concepts, experience design and analytics, and all that stuff. And yeah, that's it from my side. I'll hand over if there are any questions.
Thank you very much, Fadi, for extending our reality. I love the fact also seeing the ICP, because I spent a lot of time with Marco last OpenSlava in the ICP. A beautiful environment that I was really like in my own living room. Like, wow, honey, look at this. With my wife, we were walking through the ICP, so definitely something that people should check out. And the cool thing is, with the fashion, you can also walk around and find hidden treasures. But that's what you can also do in the VSF. You can go get the badges and find the treasures and claim your Nintendo Switch. And I know the presentation is about that, but I never heard of the term Zoomiverse. That's a really cool term for the situation.
Yeah, I'm not the person who coined this this term. It's a person called Dean Takahashi from GameBeat. So very known person in the gaming world, and I don't know if people have heard of the metaverse so far, but this is becoming something that is really, really big, which is gonna swallow all of the industry from gaming, XR, cloud, etc., etc. It's the next evolution of the internet, and this is where the fatigue of us being burnt by Zoom and being stuck in Zoomiverse will take us to the next level of the metaverse.
There you go. And in the meantime, Fadi is already teasing his next presentation next year for OpenSlava. It's going to be about the metaverse. People, there you go. If I'm looking at the timing and also for the next speaker, so I'm going to also, let me see if there's, thank you for the presentation. All right, I'm going to skip the questions just to respect the timing. Also for the next speakers already ready. Thank you so much, Fadi, for extending our reality. I really liked it. Possibilities are endless. I'm looking forward to my first digital fashion show. And have a great day.
More than welcome. Join us next year.
Will do. There you go. And we're going to continue straight away from the extended reality to something we talked about in the first day. And you also remember her. She's already smiling at me. She's super pumped. And from the first day, if you weren't there, I'm talking about Mary Hamilton, and she joined us for the panel discussion. And in the first day, it was more about business. Today, you see it's more about digital. And we talked about, well, we're all doing this great stuff. It's technology, digital, extended reality, we're coding. But we also have to drive it through our society, through our business, because we need the money, we need the mindset, we need the change. And there's also a lot of hurdles and challenges to keep that change and that innovation going. And she is back better than ever from that first day. And now she's going to dive a bit deeper. And she calls it Leaders Wanted, Masters of Change at a Moment of Truth. Meaning, and I'm not going to take away too much of her presentation, she'll probably explain it herself, but now is the moment of truth that we have to go further, and technology has more of an impact on nature, society, economics, and she's looking for those leaders. So if you are those leaders, let me know in the chat and enjoy the presentation of Mary. Mary Hamilton, take it away.
Thank you so much. It's great to be back. I'm going to share a little bit more related to my day-to-day, which, as the managing director of our technology innovation for the Americas, I look after all the really cool emerging technology from research all the way through to, how we partner with startups, how we think about prototyping with these emerging technologies. So, I'm really excited to share with you today a sneak peek into the future. Hopefully you'll hear some new technologies, expand your thinking, and hopefully all of you will walk away wanting to be leaders who are masters of change. So I want to start off just, as we're thinking about the future, it always helps to ground a little bit in where we've been, right? So I want to take a look at the adoption of major technology trends over the years, right? So, and we've been using this slide for a couple years now. And I think it's a great representation that takes us through the history of amazing technology innovations from the 1950s, right, where Turing tests and mainframes, to maybe the late 80s and mid 90s with cloud and software as a service ramping up, to the convergence of emerging technologies like AI, XR. You heard some of that just now, blockchain, quantum computing, right? And those are all accelerating into steeper and steeper take-up curves. And as you can see, we're really seeing an exponential rise of technology and a compression of those waves of tech, right? They're getting closer and closer together. And the pace of exponential technology is only increasing. And it means that organizations have to continue investing to stay ahead. And the laggers who maybe are a little behind, they have to start closing the gap now, because the gap continues to widen. So we are now, probably over a year and a half into a global pandemic, and there's still a lot of uncertainties. But one thing is absolutely irrefutable. Technology has been the lifeline that has sustained us through the pandemic, and it's redefining our reality. It also pushed a giant fast forward button to the future. Most of the organizations that we've been working with, they have stepped up to use technology in just extraordinary, incredible ways to keep their businesses and their communities running. And they've done it at a pace that previously you would have thought to be impossible. And so I think, if we look at how people are applying technology in more powerful ways than ever, it's changing and shaping the way our lives are run, right? The way we live, the way we work, and our very society. So I thought I would give you a little look at perhaps what's coming next. So a lot of this is based on the research that we're doing in our labs. And one of our newest areas of research is around neuromorphic computing. It's computing hardware, algorithms, and software based on computational models of the brain. So if you think about traditional architectures, right, your logic unit and your memory unit are separated, and the data kind of shuttles between. Maybe not that efficient. If you think about device architecture from biological computers, your brain, the logic and the memory are closely integrated in essentially the same basic device, the neuron, right? And also in the connections between the neurons, the synapses. And it turns out that neuron-based circuits are particularly good at parallel processing, right? And that makes for good pattern matching and memory retrieval. The challenges are around, how do you replicate the human's ability to be flexible, the ability to learn from unstructured stimuli, and the energy efficiency of the human brain. So there is a new computational accelerator called neuromorphic computing, and companies like Intel with their Lohi chip are exploring this. And the reason it's relevant today is that some of these breakthroughs in the hardware and the algorithmic advances are actually kind of hitting on three key benefits. So one is around power efficiency. So these things have 10 to 100 times better power efficiency, which starts to allow us to do real-time intelligence at the edge. It also provides on-chip learning. And why is that important? Because that helps increase end user privacy. We're not going back to the cloud for everything. It's all happening on that chip on the device, right? So that helps improve enterprise security. And then low latency adaptive control, right? So this helps us optimize complex systems. So, if you're thinking about where can we use something like this, think about use cases where low power, security, highly adaptive algorithms are needed. And so we found use cases around automotive, infrastructure monitoring, smart products that are really powerful. I'll just give you one quick example that I think can bring it to life. Think about the automotive space. Power is absolutely at a premium in a vehicle. And so if we wanted to, for example, do voice recognition, pattern recognition for someone's voice imprint to open a car while the car is still off. So I walk up to my car and I want to unlock it with my voice. neuromorphic computing is a great example. This is a great example for neuromorphic computing, because I can walk up with the power being off, essentially, or very low power usage without draining the battery, but you can use a neuromorphic chip then to do that voice recognition. So I could unlock my car without ever having to turn it on. Super powerful. All right, let's talk a little bit about robotics, which is one of my favorite topics. And I think there is a tremendous shift that we're seeing from, robots have been around for a very long time, right? But historically, they've been in manufacturing settings, maybe in safety cages, doing their own thing. We are starting to see a paradigm shift to robots starting to interact more with humans, right? Collaborative robots, cobots, thinking about that human-robot interaction, right? And then robot-to-robot interactions. And so I love this example that you're seeing on the video here. There's no audio, so don't worry if you're not hearing anything. It's just for you to see how these bionic ants by Festo are actually cooperating. So these are collaborative, cooperative, robotic ants that work together under a set of rules. So the ants have 3D stereo cameras on their heads. So that helps them identify objects. It kind of contextualizes the environment around them. And they can communicate and coordinate with each other. And they can essentially coordinate their actions, their movements among each other, right? So if you think about what that's demonstrating, it's how autonomous individual components, robotic components, can solve a complex task together, working as an overall networked system. So, if you kind of abstract that away and maybe think about it for the factory of tomorrow, you can think about future production systems that might be based on intelligent components that can sort of adjust themselves flexibly to different production scenarios. And you're really taking that level of control up to a higher level now. And then, if we extend this concept to the broader workforce, and think about collaboration, collaborative systems, right? We all know how to do the human to human. We try to do the human to human collaboration, things like Zoom, et cetera, in-person interactions. We're starting to see, as I mentioned, that shift to human and robot interactions and collaborations, right? How do I understand what the robot's trying to do? And, how does it know what I'm trying to do? And then those robot to robot connections. But if you put that all together in a system and really start rethinking business processes, you can create some magic, right, across all those different means of collaboration. All right, so let's take a look at the next topic or the next area. This is actually one of my favorites. My degree was in materials science, and we are looking at doing research around smart materials. So this is really a class of advanced materials where the molecular structure is engineered to sense and react to stimuli in a predefined way. So the physical properties of this material can be altered in a predictable, in a repeatable, and ideally in a useful way in response to external conditions and signals. So, how do we do that? Right? Basically, we're thinking about using these materials that have sensors or actuators encoded at the molecular level. So some examples of that might be thermochromic pigments, right? They can change color at certain temperatures. Velostat pressure sensors, smart foam, hydrogels, shape memory elastomers, right? These are all different kinds of materials that you can really start to treat as sensors and actuators at the molecular level. And then we get into things like 4D printing. So I'm sure many of you have heard of 3D printing, right? That's definitely, been making a rise. But when we talk about 4D printing, it's really about printing the structure. So not just the object, but also the structure in a way that's designed to transform in a specific and pre-designed way based on different stimuli. So, I love to imagine the future where I know many of you have probably struggled with putting together maybe an IKEA chair, right? You buy it and then you got to follow the instructions and put this thing together. If you had a 4D printed chair, for example, it might come completely flat. Maybe you bust out your hair dryer or put it in your tub. and it folds itself into a chair. And because it's been pre-designed in a certain way, and when you apply that stimuli, off it goes into its shape. So what are some of the potential advantages of smart materials? One, they're a seamless interface. If you, assuming many of you are at home, if you look around your environment, right, you probably have fabric on your chair, maybe a fabric on your chair or somewhere in the room, the paint on your walls. Imagine that those could all be interactive, whether they're sensors or actuators, right, changing in response to what you're doing. It provides completely unobtrusive intelligence. I don't know if any of you have ever tried the Levi actually had a jacket that had some smart thread embedded in it. You could start to control your audio device while maybe you're riding your bike, right? It becomes very unobtrusive because you're doing it just on your jacket sleeve. And also the other advantage these provide is to really create intelligence that is feasible at a much smaller and a much larger scale than what we have available today, right? I talked about all this happening at the molecular level, so you can get down really small, but also if you think about scale, think about pipelines, right? To really understand, if there's a leakage in a pipeline, you have to put a lot of sensors on that pipeline, right? Sensors are low cost, but there's still a cost to it. Imagine if you could just use a coating, right? That at the molecular level could then do that sensing for you. You don't need the same number of sensors, right? You can just do things at a much larger scale. So, we're looking at industries like automotive, fashion, I mentioned the jacket, safety and sports monitoring, healthcare, agriculture, think self-drilling seeds that know just the right time, moisture levels, et cetera, when to drill themselves down and plant themselves. And then some of those industrial examples, like I mentioned around the pipeline. This is one of my favorite topics. I think it's just really cool where things are going here. Oops. All right, so next slide. All right, and this one, actually the last speaker teed this up perfectly. I was going to talk a little bit about the metaverse and assume that some of you have probably heard about the metaverse. I love that shopping store example of, being immersed in an extended reality experience where you can go and, look at a jacket and bring your partner in to check it out. But I've also like to think about, how do we extend beyond that? How do we make this even more immersive? The ways in which we think about it, we have today visual, right? We have auditory experiences, right, from the headsets. But we haven't done much around haptics, around olfactory. If you think about your sense of smell, scent is an incredibly powerful trigger for memory recall, right? The olfactory system in humans is linked to the most primitive parts of our brain, which is a little different than all the other senses, right? It kind of goes directly to your amygdala and your hippocampus. And that's why, it's a reasonable explanation for why a smell can trigger such a detailed memory, right? Or an intense emotion. And just kind of another data point, right? We have 1,000 different types of smell receptors, but only 4 types of light sensors and about 4 types of receptors for touch. So we have 1,000 for smell, right? It's super powerful, but we don't use that in our immersive experiences. So we're looking at ways that we could extend that. Also thinking from the haptics standpoint. I mentioned going to take a look at a jacket, or you're in a shop. Could you actually smell the perfume, right? Could you walk over to a jacket and feel, how does the zipper work on this, right? And we're starting to see additional auxiliary devices that allow you through either ultrasound or perhaps a glove to be able to feel things at a fine grain level, right? And have that haptic control. So you can start to imagine training experiences, right? Consumer experiences where you're touching and feeling things, or, even being able to control a robot, maybe at a distance, right? Kind of that telerobotics concept that, you want the robot to turn a dial, you have to have really fine grained control and feeling over, like, how is that dial turning, right? And so that is some of what we're looking at, how to use those haptic experiences to extend and really immerse people as we move closer and closer to the metaverse. So I'm kind of taking the metaverse as table stakes, right? How do we go beyond that? And then I would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about artificial intelligence, right? And what we're doing to reimagine businesses, to reimagine interactions, people, right? And society itself. And I'll give some examples in each of these areas. But before I get into that, I want to talk a little bit about where we're going with AI, right? The opportunities around artificial intelligence are truly endless, right? This continues to be one of the most impactful technologies of our time. But we've been researching it for a long time, right? We've been working on it, and a lot of it is starting to be implemented. But when we think about it from a research perspective, where are we going next? Is we're trying to make it smarter, faster, better, right? More responsible. So when we think about the smarter side of it, right, the kind of the holy grail is the artificial general intelligence, right? Where are we trying to go? But we really have an idea that, we're not going to get to that full general intelligence, but we can in certain domains, right? If we think about it from an enterprise standpoint, we can get closer to reasoning, right? Where you're kind of going beyond explicitly foreseen or narrow circumstances. We can start to get into more of that reasoning if we look at it from an industry or a use case or kind of a more specific set of functions. And so we believe that that's where the future of smarter AI is heading, right? It's more around this enterprise artificial general intelligence and how do we get there? From making it faster, the speed of today's AI solutions are only limited by computational power at this point, right? So if you think about what platforms we have available, CPU is still going to play a big role. It's low cost, it's flexible, it's accessible. There's a wide set of development tools, frameworks, languages already built up. And that allows us to do faster development, right? Which allows us to be more adaptable, which allows us to experiment more, drive innovation. So that's still really important. But as Moore's law is approaching its peak, we are increasingly turning to hardware accelerators to provide the necessary compute power. So if you think about GPUs, the general purpose graphics processing units, FPGA, field programmable field gate arrays. These are new hardware accelerators that are starting to change the game, right? We've seen companies, announcing new FPGA cards that are delivering 10 to 20 times improvement on throughput and latency as compared to CPUs, and doing it, back to that low power and doing it at a lower power, right? So that's really important. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we're seeing new and emerging compute platforms like quantum, bio-optical compute that are they're emerging and have a huge opportunity to significantly change the game around AI. And then if we look at the better side, right, the more responsible, we really have to think from the beginning of how we're designing these, that we're designing for accountability, right? The governance that sits behind this. How do we plan for that? That we're thinking about fairness, anticipating and addressing bias in the system, transparency, making it interpretable, understandable, explainable. Honesty is really about trustworthiness. Can we trust these systems? Can we trust the data? Can we trust the models, et cetera? And then agency is, are we designing to be human-centric, right? Are we designing this to be sustainable, beneficial to society, right? When I think about it, I love AI and even robotics, kind of the physical instantiation of it. I love it because it can help humans to take away, not to take away everything we do, not to take over jobs, but to take over the dull, dirty, dangerous work that people really shouldn't be doing, right? Let's put that into the intelligent systems. And then obviously, making sure that it's secure, right? I think that goes with the honesty and the trustworthiness. So let's talk a little bit, I mentioned how intelligence is going to help us reimagine business, people, society. So let's talk a little bit about each of those. When I think about how we're reimagining businesses, we're digitizing the world around us, right? And that provides a huge opportunity for increased intelligence at the edge. And it gives us the ability to start to create digital twins of everything, of products, people, systems, architectures, right? So that we can have better insights into the data that's coming off of those, right? So we understand activities, behaviors, and then we can turn around and use that to come back into design, right? And so the more we can understand a digital object, the more we can interact with it, the more we can understand how it's being used. And then that can filter back into new feature sets, how we, using intelligence to actually generate designs, right? The whole notion of generative design. Thinking about and understanding how a product is interacting or how an object is interacting with an ecosystem, right? And how does that change as it moves through a supply chain, for example, right? And we even call that the digital thread, right? Which is the platform that, across time and across businesses that really governs the digital representation of that smart product everywhere. And that's the digital thread that goes through it. And then you can start to use those creative tools to help generate and rethink what the products are that we're providing. So let me give you a real life example of how we're using that. Faurecia is an innovation partner of ours. They are a tier 1 automotive supplier. So they mainly do seating and interiors. And so, they're manufacturing seats, right? And we have actually started to create digital twins of those seats so that as it's going through the manufacturing production line, we can rapidly use computer vision to detect wrinkles or defects and get those fixed, help the human, not to do the fixes themselves, but to help the human accelerate that, or maybe help augment, right? If there are simple things that the robot could do it and the human does the final touch. But the more you can accelerate the production line, through insights, the faster things can go. But then we're also working with them to think through design tools, right? How do we create physical simulations of the interior? How do you create a configurable platform that starts to bring together the physical, right? Which they are masters of. They've been doing this for a long time, how to stitch leather perfectly. But then how do you bring in the digital services on top of that? And how do you look at the merging between the physical and digital services that you want to provide, and how do you design for that and configure for that? So those are some of the things that we're starting to explore with Faurecia to really help create, we call it the cockpit of the future, right? Where's the future of automotive going? When we think about the people side of it, we really need to think about how do we reimagine people and their experiences, right? How do we create the moments that matter, right? And really interact in the right ways. And so I'll give you an example that we're doing with Disney Studios. So, obviously Disney Studios is highly innovative, but we've partnered up with them to create the Disney Studio Lab. And it is a workspace to incubate innovation projects, right? And we are looking at ways to advance storytelling through emerging technology. And that could be, in the pre-production, it could be in how you experience it, it could be, in how the writers and designers and post-production all come together. But we're really looking at what is the future of entertainment. And so we've partnered with them in a few ways. One, to just stand up this physical lab, and you can see some of it here. You can see some of the rigs, and we've got drones, and we've got all kinds of cool stuff in the lab. But then we help them also shape, what does the innovation process and program look like across a set of partners? So it's not just Disney, it's not just Accenture. We have Microsoft in there, and HP and Verizon, Cisco. So how do we do innovation across the whole ecosystem? And then how do we really define, run, and create technology and experience pilots and solutions? And I'll just share one of my favorites that's out in the public sphere so I can talk about it. We're creating an interactive movie poster. And it started with a really kind of cheap and cheerful version where we did emotion recognition for the Dumbo release, the new Dumbo release on the red carpet. And someone could walk up and it would recognize an emotion. Are you sad? Are you happy? Are you angry? And then it would give you a video clip related to that, customized and tailored to that. And then since then, we've been evolving this platform to really start to understand and use intelligence to understand the intent and the context. If someone walks up and they're waving, are they waving hello? Are they waving to the friend? Are they waving goodbye? Understanding that context, and it's a simple example, and then being able to create a personalized experience around that. So look for an interactive movie poster coming soon to the theater near you, or maybe an Accenture Innovation Hub at least. But it actually has been used now in a couple recent movie productions, Black Widow and The Jungle Cruise. So it's out there, it's scaled, it's in the wild. And so the last little bit that I wanted to share was around how we're reimagining society, right? And I think when we think about all these technologies, at its core, if we are doing these to better society and help people, that technology and those solutions actually become powerful and useful for everyone. So a super quick example where we've worked with Charity Water. They're a nonprofit organization that provides clean and safe drinking water to people in developing nations. And they have worked actually in Ethiopia, where they have a set of hand water pumps that we've retrofitted with sensors and cloud connectivity, because if these pumps fail, that means the community doesn't have water until a local technician can get there and can do the repairs. So being able to understand, where these pumps are in their life cycle, and we don't have past data, right? They were retrofitted. So we use probabilistic programming to create a model of water consumption, using the data collected from those remote sensors. And then we were able to provide a systematic way to detect changes in that water consumption behavior. And then from there, capture anomalous pumps. So pumps that are different from the others, right? Pumps that are behaving differently. So essentially, we can start to determine, or can solve for an optimal policy that determines the best maintenance decision to be made on that asset at any point in time, right? So we're kind of taking the probability of when that pump is going to fail. So it's quite different than the prescriptive maintenance that we see today. So as we're making that shift, you could think about then, obviously this is for the good of communities and people, but you could think about, clearly how that could be applied, in factory or industrial settings to really start changing the game about how we think about maintenance. And with that, hopefully I have painted an exciting view of the future. I think after all that we've been through, right, over the last year and a half, and even prior to that, I really believe we are reaching a moment of truth. This is it's truly a moment where we're going to break from past mindsets. We're going to change our modes of living and working, and we're going to move forward to shape a world that will look and feel profoundly different from anything we've ever experienced. I really hope all of you will embrace change as something that is to be passionately pursued, not passively feared. And I challenge all of you to become leaders who are masters of change, right? Who will welcome and help adopt all these new technologies and the change that's coming. And I hope all of you will help bring the future I described into focus even faster. So with that, thank you.
Super cool, Mary. Thank you very much. The crowd goes wild. Virtual applause. I know it's different online. Thank you so much for that inspiring presentation. I also been taking pictures of the screen, sending it to my friends also who are just teasing them because they're in 3D printing and they're super proud of their printer. I tend to forget 3D printing. It's all about 4D printing. What are you doing? It's so 2020. So they're all going ballistic. And you did a good job when Martin says, for example, in the chat, Mary, comma, he's serious when he says Mary, comma, neuromorphic computing, robotic ants, cooperating 4D printing, material sensor, and actuators on a molecular level. Pause. Pretty cool. And then you did a great job if you're getting that in the chat. I also loved it. We don't have time for questions. We're going to want to respect also the time for the other speaker. But I think you really inspired us with everything that is going on. And the cool thing also, for not linking everything to what we're doing here today, but you were talking about the Dumbo poster. which can track your emotions. We have an AI cocktail maker in the VSF that can track your emotion and makes a cocktail based on that mood. So I love how this is already reality, like you said, and not just this distant future thing. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have you over in future OpenSlavas, because if I look at what people are saying, they're super excited. So same me, you probably noticed it. I was super inspired. So great.
Awesome.
Thank you
thanks
so
for
much.
having me.
There you go, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye. Cheers. All right, cool. Moving along. Let me know if you want to share something or feel inspired in the chat. We're still here. Moving along. We are building stuff. We are marketing it with beautiful, beautiful designs. We are extending our reality. We are talking about the metaverse, about all this cool stuff, robo ants. It's all going on there. But the next speaker also says, well, that's all good, but it cannot just be about creating this and code implementation. We also have to ask up front before we do these things. Like, what are the questions we need to ask ourselves? What roles does everybody have to play in the team? And she all sums it up in her title of her presentation, saying architecting for accessibility, because in the end, people still have to use everything that we're talking about today. And she has good reason to say that, because she has a background. She's a Google development expert, UX, UI expert, and she combines her background in psychology, design, and visual communication in her role as the CTO with, I think, a company with one of the coolest names, the Andromeda Galactic Solutions. If she would now say, we have been ruling the galaxy for ages, I would believe it with a company name like that. I'm talking about Martine Dowden. I'm really looking forward to this one. Like I said, architecture for accessibility. I'm checking my backstage to see if our next speaker is ready. Yes, she's popping up. So give me a thumbs up or smile if you are like Marnik. Let me rock this. There you go. Thumbs up. Architecting for accessibility, Martine Dowden. Take it away. Have fun. Show is yours.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me today. Today, as we just heard, I'm going to be talking about accessibility, which when you're just getting started can be quite a little bit intimidating, right? There's a lot to think of. So where do we actually start? So in this talk, I'm going to go over how accessibility relates to the web, more so our standard web application, not some of the cooler technologies that the previous speaker was talking about, but more so our standard web applications. And I'm going to talk specifically about how to get started. What are some questions that we need to be asking as we go along? We're not going to dive into code. We're just going to talk about what are those things we need to think about behind the scenes before we even delve into the application. So accessibility, let's look at a definition first, because accessibility, we hear that word a lot, but we don't necessarily have a good definition for it. And so if we look at what the documentation says, it talks about the ability to interact with a product or service and gain the same benefit from the interaction regardless of the device user capabilities of the users. So in short, we're saying no matter who it is, what it is, and what the capabilities of the users are, we need to be able to use it. And as a developer, that's a really tall order. That's kind of scary, because if we think of all of the devices out there, if we think of all of the things that are available today, from our printers, from our watches, from our, the various computers, even just if we look at phones alone, how many instances of OSs in versions and models there are, that can be pretty intimidating. So there's standards to help us do that, and there's questions that we can ask to kind of guide us down to get the best solution we can get for our users. A quick side note, oftentimes when we talk about accessibility, we see this numeronym, A11Y, and all that means is it looks at the first letter, the last letter, and there's 11 letters in between. So if you've ever seen that on the web, it's used on Twitter a lot. That's what that means. It's kind of funny because the accessibility community isn't quite in agreement as to whether the numeronym is accessible, because you have to know what it means to even understand what it means. But, there it is. So I tend to use the word accessibility as much as I can, unless I run out of characters. But, such is life. Moving on. So what does it mean to be accessible? It means that you can perceive, understand, navigate, and interact and contribute to the web. So perceive is, can you understand can you get the information? So whether that's visually, can you see it? Or if you are visually impaired or using an assistive technology, can you get that information somehow? Can you understand what is on there? Is the language being used? Not necessarily is it in the language that you speak, but is the vocabulary being used understandable to your audience? Can you navigate it? Can you get from one piece of the application to the next? And the contribute part is a little bit, it depends on the circumstance, but in the case of maybe there's a forum or a chat application, or maybe, or if we think of our social medias, can we contribute? Can we add to it? So what are the barriers that keep us from being able to do these things? They can be auditory, things that you hear. That's where things like captions come into play. They can be visual. These are things that you can see. That's where we need to make sure that our applications and our code is written in a way to allow assistive technologies to be able to understand it. Speech, that comes into play with a lot of our, like say if you're developing for Alexa, for example, or for some of the other products, which I will not name in order not to trigger my devices in my home. Physical, these can be anything from what devices can we use to interact with the application. So the standard, if we think of a computer, most people are going to use a keyboard and mouse, but that's not necessarily available to everybody for whatever reasons, either their own limitations, or maybe they're on a device where there isn't a keyboard. So are there other ways that we can find that? And does the application allow for being able to interact with it? The other piece with physical and things that can prevent, that can be barriers with physical is stamina, because it's not because you can perform the action once or twice that you can do it over and over and over again. So if you think of typing, for example, that's a lot of keystrokes, right? Can you actually perform that over and over again? Or do you end up needing to use an alternative technology because you just, you can't do that multiple times? And the last piece is cognitive and neurological, which are barriers that are a result of a situation or condition affecting the central or peripheral nervous system. And that can be injuries, but that can also be diseases. If you think of Parkinson's, for example, that would fall in that, or epilepsy as well, would fall in those categories. Now, I've neatly categorized these in 5 little groups to make them really easy to talk about, but we need to keep in mind that most of our users are going to have barriers that overlap, right? Several of these categories. Rarely are you going to have a barrier that's in one of those categories alone. I've kind of grouped them that way to make them easier to talk about and to make them easier to define, but rarely is it ever that clean and simple. So how do we get started? We know what our barriers are. We know what accessibility means. How do we get started down this road? Well, the first thing is we need to determine scope. How big of a job is this going to be? And in order to determine scope, we need to understand what standards we're going to follow. Generally speaking, on the web, we're going to use the standard sets by the W3, the World Wide Web Consortium. And so they've set several standards depending on the type of application you're writing. So you have ATAG, UTAG, and WCAG. ATAG is the authoring tool accessibility guideline. These would be for applications that create content. So if you think of your content management systems, right, your CMSs. You have the user agent accessibility guidelines, which are the UAAG, the UTAG. Those are for browsers. So if you were to create your own browser, those are the guidelines you would need to follow. And finally, WCAG, which is when we're writing web applications, is the one we're generally speaking going to be following. And that one's subdivided into 3 categories, A, AA, and AAA, or 3 sets of conformances. And so they build on each other. So level A is your lowest level, your basic level. Then you have AA, which are all of the A standards plus some. And then you have your AAA, which are all of your A and AA standards plus some. And so when we think about accessibility, we think, okay, cool, I'm going to do the best job I can. I'm going to go straight to AA. Well, that's not necessarily a good solution. Generally speaking, AA is more than plenty. We don't need to go all the way to AAA. AAA is generally something that we're going to do if we have a very specific user set that we need that has a very specific need. And generally, the places that are going to be AAA'd are things that are very specific to that user. Sometimes If we try to do AA, we can hurt our usability in some cases. So generally speaking, we want to stay at AA. And in most countries, if there is a legal requirement, that's generally where it's going to fall. So, and this is where I have to give a big fat caveat that I'm not a lawyer, and in a lot of countries there, and depending on your contract or depending on the type of application you may be building, there may be some legal requirements that you also need to follow. And so that's where you really need to be talking with your legal team when you're deciding, you know, that you're going to go down your accessibility journey to really understand what standards you're going to follow. So now that once you've established your standards and what you need to, you know, what basically requirements you need to be following, you need to determine, okay, what browsers are we going to support? Because there's a lot of browsers out there. The thing is that as of, and I looked these numbers up yesterday, right now the top 2 are Chrome and Safari, followed by Edge, Firefox, Samsung Internet, Opera, and then a bunch of others. So basically Chrome and Safari realistically are going to be 83% of your market share. So these are definitely some that you're probably going to want to be testing for. After that, it's kind of up to you and depending on your user base. But those are definitely your heavy hitters are going to be Chrome and Safari at the moment. These numbers do change as browsers fall in and out of favor. So keeping kind of in mind what those are. And then if these are worldwide numbers, maybe your area in terms of either your industry or maybe your requirements might have some different user bases. So keeping in mind what your users are using is important. The other thing to keep in mind is things like mobile versus desktop. And one of the errors I've seen often is people saying, well, nobody, like we've got our analytics, nobody uses our stuff on mobile. Why do I need to even worry about mobile? And the answer I always have to ask is it that they're not using mobile because it's not a use case for this application, or are they not using mobile because your application is not accessible on mobile, it doesn't work well on mobile, and so therefore they give up and either don't use it at all or go ahead and use it on desktop. So keeping in mind that analytics can lie a little bit in that use case because they're telling you what is currently used, not what could be done. Then we got to look at what technology people are using, and that's where that mobile piece comes into play. And for some things, we can use analytics, right? We can tell we have this many users on this browser, these devices, this is our most common one, etc. One thing we cannot do is figure out through analytics what assistive technologies our users are employing to access our applications. And that's because of a security concern. It is very much obfuscated on purpose because there's a lot of nefarious things we could do if we had that information. If I know that this user's coming in using a screen reader, for example, I could potentially deduce that this user is blind and I could use that to discriminate against that user. So these are things that are obfuscated on purpose in order to protect the privacy of our users. However, the WebAIM project did do a survey. So these were willing users that graciously answered this survey and gave some information about the technologies that they use. And they do this survey pretty regularly. This is the results from version 8, which was taken in 2019. And it shows that right now, it's pretty well split up, but it looks like JAWS and NVDA are kind of going to be your top in terms of your usage for your screen readers and in combination with Chrome and Firefox. Worth noting that VoiceOver is what comes default with Mac. And so you're often going to see that VoiceOver with Safari combination together because they come as a screen reader. Most computers at this point come with a built-in screen reader, whether it's Mac or Windows. So those are things that you're going to watch. IE has been sunset at this point by Microsoft, so I'm assuming that the NVDA IE category you see at the bottom will diminish over time as IE is no longer supported. The next piece we're going to want to do is at this point we have an idea of our devices, we have an idea of what we're going to support, is we're probably going to want to start thinking about our accessibility statement. And this statement is for your users. And what it says is basically, it establishes that you have a commitment to accessibility, which standards you're going to use. It tells the user what your standards are, which browsers and tools you're testing against, and what limitations you know exist in your application. So as you start down your accessibility journey, especially if you're fixing a currently existing application, you're going to want to edit this document over time to say, hey, we've so far fixed these portions. So these portions of our application work and have been tested and are accessible, but we still know we have issues in places A, B, and C, for example. This is going to be a living and breathing document. The other piece with this document is that a lot of times it includes if I'm having issues accessing your website, who should I contact, right? If I'm a screen reader user or maybe a magnifier user and I notice there's a huge issue with this piece of the application, it doesn't work, who can I contact and where can I get support? And that feedback for you is very, very important because it will let you know what the users want to be able to do with your application and help you guide your journey towards making your application more accessible. There's a link here at the bottom from w3.org that is a generator that helps you create that accessibility statement. You basically plug in a little bit of information and it spits out a statement, so it can give you a start on how to write it. I have found it in English. I have not found a way to do it in other languages, but it may be that my browser is set to English, so maybe it is capable of producing it in another language if you're coming at it from a browser set in a different language. I'm not sure, but that's there is a generator out there that can help you get started with that statement. So we have our browser support, we have our technology. Now we need to look at our flows and processes inside of our application. And what I mean by that is, what are our access roles, conditions, data? Like, for example, a lot of applications, maybe you have admin users versus, regular users, and based on their permissions, they can see or not see different things. And we need to know what are all of these paths through our application in order to make sure we are testing and applying our accessibility fixes everywhere in our application for all of our users. So maybe we might focus on one particular user a little bit earlier on. Maybe we want to focus external first and internal second, or maybe it's the other way around, right? We know that internally we have several employees that really, really need this application to be more accessible, so we're going to focus on them first. It really depends. However, understanding what those pathways are and what those user flows are will help you make sure you're not missing any part of your application as you're going about applying your fixes. We also want to understand where our breakpoints are. This happens with like responsive and fluid applications, where we need to understand, okay, we know that on mobile it looks a little bit different than on desktop, right? So we want to make sure that those interactions that might be a little bit different on mobile versus desktop are going ahead and being tested. So a lot of times we can search for things like our media queries in our application, and either for size or for print, to make sure that these are being applied and that these are being tested. Sometimes it's also being handled via JavaScript, so we may need to, kind of look through our JavaScript code as well. But those are kind of ways we can figure out where our breakpoints are for either device-specific things or screen width-specific things. The other piece we need to look at is our third-party integrations. What's interesting with third-party integrations is we don't necessarily have control over their accessibility. Some of them we do, some of them we don't. It depends on what the integration is and what it does and how it's being applied. A lot of time our best bet with our third-party integrations is to, when we're choosing them at the very beginning, making sure that they're accessible or that they have ways of being made accessible. But that's not always possible. And so that's where that accessibility statement comes back in. So if you have a third-party integration that you have to use for whatever reason and you know it can't be made accessible, you would mention that in the accessibility statement to say, hey, all of our stuff is accessible except for this one little piece because it's a third-party integration and we're sorry, we can't do anything about it. So that's a place where you would want to address that if that third-party integration can't be changed to something that is accessible or be made to be accessible. How do we go about testing? We can look at our code quality. If our code doesn't parse, it's not going to be accessible because if parsers can't read it, so accessibility technologies are going to have issues reading it as well. That's less of an issue for things like if you're using like Angular, for example, or if your CSS is written via Sass because you have a compiler and the compiler will yell at you if there's some code quality issues. However, so other technologies may not have the near as strong of guardrails, and so making sure that we are linting our code and using validators will help us. Automated testing, these can be done via browser plugins, for example. They can also be done via code things that you add to your pipelines. They know code that you add to your pipeline so that it runs every time your pipelines and your continuous integration works. Two of the ones I really like are accessibility insights for web and Lighthouse. The reason being that the accessibility insights for web has kind of two modes, one of which allows you to test kind of a quick automation, and then has the long version as well, where it shows you all of the manual testing you need to do. Lighthouse is just a quick and easy, will give you that very instant, here's what you're thinking, here's what your kind of code looks at. The thing with automated testing is that it only tests a portion of your application. There's still some things that can only be done manually and tested manually. So for example, your tab order or whether or not the application makes, when you're listening to it, makes sense, right? Or your all your alternate descriptions for your images that are in your alt tags, do those make sense? Automated testing can't catch that. They can catch whether the tag is there, but they cannot test whether or not the content in there makes sense. So no matter what, you will always have manual testing. Automated testing only gets you started. It does not do the full, the full test. It is not fully done. The last bit is simulators. And I caution with those. Simulators are really nice for things like if you want to take a look at your page from the perspective of somebody that is colorblind, they're great for doing that. The problem with simulators, once you get really involved in it, they tend to instill pity rather than actually helping you move forward. And pity is not what we want. We don't want to pity our users. We want to make a better experience for our users. So be very, very cautious with those. They're not ideal for a lot of things, but they have their uses for, again, things like, how does this look to somebody that is colorblind, for example. Here's a couple simulators that do exist, but again, use them with caution. And lastly is testing with the actual assistive technologies, right? Crack open that screen reader on your computer and give it a try and see how that interaction is. Kind of word of advice on that. If you've never used a screen reader before and it offers a tutorial and a how-to, go ahead and do the tutorial because those keyboard shortcuts are not anything that you've ever really used before. So go ahead and do the tutorial. You'll thank me later. So how do we know kind of what we need to do. How do we get our team on board? Because right now what I'm presenting is a bunch of extra work you didn't have before you cared about accessibility, right? So if we look at our team, I've broken it down, same way I broke down our barriers into very neat groups. I'm breaking down our team in very neat groups. A lot of times, especially on smaller teams, people will have roles that overlap some of these groups. That's okay. But this is kind of the breakdown I'm using for the purpose of conversation. So we have our leadership. What does our leadership need to be able to do? Well, we need to make sure they're on board, that they're supporting our efforts, right? That they're making our business goal, that they're making sure that accessibility is part of their business goals, and that they're budgeting time and resources towards it, because we may need software. We definitely need more time for development, right? We don't want to add a bunch of extra work on top of our current load and not make sure that time is budgeted for that. Our managers and product owners and business stakeholders are coming to the same idea, right? Accessibility testing takes time. So we need to make sure that that's being allotted for. The other piece is, does our team need training, right? We need to make sure that if the team needs training, there's a budget for that. Our marketing, branding, and design teams, that's going to be really important for our assets. If our style guide at the very base of it is not accessible, if the colors, for example, in the style guide being given by our marketing manager that we must follow is not accessible, we're going to have a really hard time making the application accessible. The other thing is making sure that those visual aspects are already taken care of and understood and agreed upon from the very beginning will prevent friction. A lot of teams I've worked with have friction between the design team and the accessibility team because the accessibility team is telling them, no, we can't use this color combination because it doesn't pass color contrast. And they're saying, yeah, but you're trying to make me make it ugly. Well, it's not about ugly versus workable. It's about finding what will work and coming to a compromise and making sure we're working together to achieve that accessibility goal. Content creators. So this is going to be anybody who's authoring anything, whether it's authoring content to put on our page, whether it's authoring videos. We need to make sure that those are accessible as well as they're getting put into the application. So they're going to have a little bit of work to do on that end too. So if they're producing video, does that video include captions, right? Do we have a caption track being attached and a transcript attached to those videos from the very beginning? When it comes to content, is the vocabulary that is being used accessible to our users, right? So those are things they're going to have probably some process they're going to have to put in place on their ends as well before giving developers the content to implement with making sure that that content stays accessible. Developers, obviously there's code we're going to have to be writing to make things accessible. It doesn't just magically happen because we will it so. And so there's going to be extra code and extra testing that needs to happen. DevOps may be involved in this as well because we have, maybe we're wanting to add automated testing in our continuous integration, for example. So they're going to probably have a little bit of extra work there. So there's definitely considerations there. With the developers, depending on their skill set regarding accessibility, there may be some training needed. So that might be important to consider. And testing and quality assurance. They're going to be doing that testing for accessibility to validate that, hey, the changes that we're making are actually making the application more accessible. So they're definitely going to be involved. Whether that's via automation, whether that's manual, and again, DevOps, right? Because of being able to put any automation testing into our pipelines. And finally, legal, compliance, HR, those types of roles, because that accessibility statement, right, that we wrote, they probably need to review it, right? Because it's representing their company. Any kind of legal representation to make sure that, hey, we are utilizing and following the standards that we are legally required to follow. Based on whatever, not all projects do have legal requirements, but some definitely do. So making sure that those are being followed. So it's a combination of, for the content, for things like accessibility statement, but also making sure we're doing all the right things we need to do according to whatever contract or legal requirements we're bound to. So those are kind of our team roles. And when we look at our team, when we incentivize people, we optimize for reward, but when we inspire people, we optimize for purpose. And what we want to do here is optimize for purpose. We want to get that application accessible, right? That's the purpose. So how do we incentivize people? Well, there's really 4 big motivators. We have ethical, legal, economic, and personal. Your ethical is probably going to be the most effective because it's somebody doing it because they feel ethically obliged to do it. Which, I mean, accessibility and giving equal access to our content, it's a pretty big ethical input that we have based upon us as developers. Legal, are we, contractually based? You don't have a choice, right? That's big motivation. Not getting sued is pretty big motivation. Economic, in the United States alone, there's 49 million people with disabilities whom control an estimated 175 billion in discretionary income. For any business, this can represent about 20% of the market. So there's a real big, and this can be a nice heavy hitter for convincing leadership. If you can't get your leadership to get on board, is that realistically, there's a big economic advantage to being able to be accessible. And then personal, maybe you have a friend or a family member or are personally impacted by not having access to something or having some accessibility hindrances. So that could be another motivator. But those are kind of your 4 categories. And most people have multiples of these influencing them to want to do accessibility. But those are ways that you can motivate your leadership and your team. So lastly, like we have our motivations, we have our team, we have what we need to do. Let's create a plan, right? We need a plan to get this done. And so our plan can kind of fall into 4 pieces. First off is finding your allies. And so once you've figured out who your team is, you've already pretty much done this piece, because you're probably, as you're discussing accessibility with your team, figure out who's really gung-ho about it, who's really excited about it. And those are going to be some of your driving forces behind motivating the rest of your team to get it done. So lean on people, right? This is also where we need to figure out things and ask ourselves questions like, what is our team's skill and awareness of accessibility? Do we need to secure some training? Do we need to allow time in our timelines for a learning curve? Because accessibility, and this is a whole new set of skills and techniques that maybe our team is not aware of. And so there's going to be a learning curve, right? And again, do we need to revise our team agreements and our procedures regarding coding, regarding testing? Do we need to acquire or test out some tools? So those are all questions we need to be asking in this phase. And the next phase, we're going to start with the big ones. In any application, we have we're going to have areas that are going to be a lot easier to fix. And we're going to have areas that are going to be impact large amounts of the application. So if we think of our navigation bar, right, it's available on the top of any website, and it's on every page. Those are the things that I'm referring to with the big wins. So your things that are on every page that are really impactful and that are going to apply to a large portion of your application. We're also going to fix low-hanging fruit, because those are quick, easy wins that make you feel good and make you, get a nice, healthy, effective start to being accessible. The other thing we want to do in this phase is kind of narrow down our tools. Yes.
Martine, sorry, not to be rude, just cutting in, just letting you know, due to timing, also the next speaker, I don't know how much you still have in your story, but if you could wrap it up in a minute, that would be amazing. Thank you very much.
I could do that. We can focus on features. That's the next piece. Now that we've got the easy wins done, we're going to focus on our features, which features are going to be, as we develop new, and especially as we develop new ones. This is where focus groups come into play to help us with getting those features done. New development, obviously, as we create new development, we're going to want to make sure that all of that is being tested, both manually and automated, and that regression testing what we've done to make sure it all plays nice together. This is a really good time to do for potentially doing an external audit, especially if you have a team that is new to accessibility, because it may discover things that you may have missed completely, or validate that, hey, you're doing everything and you're doing a really good job, and keep going at it, right? And finally, you want to document so that you can go ahead and scale. Maybe your next project or the next team in your company wants to start down their accessibility journey. So you can document what you've done and how you've implemented everything. If you want to know more, I've got a book, Approachable Accessibility, that has a lot more detail on everything we've covered today. Thank you very much, and hope you enjoyed, and hope this helps in getting you started on your accessibility journey.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Martine. Sorry for the interruption. Didn't want to be rude, but we already had the other one coming in.
Totally understand.
Super cool. Love the insights that you're giving. I'm always happy to see the accessibility presentations, because I think it's really important. I also understand it, and that there's still so much work to be done. So thank you so much. Not to be hasty, but we're moving to the last speaker of OpenSlava. The third day is almost to an end. It goes so fast. And if we look at everything, before we go, maybe just mention that you're already having to have a survey on openslava.sk. So if you're like, how would I want to give my opinion and improve OpenSlava, and let us know what I think and what's the good stuff and what's the improvements, so we can take that along for hopefully the physical one in 2022. You can already do that. Of course, stick with us to the last speaker, but you can already do that on openslava.sk. That being said, if we look at everything that we discussed in these 3 days, it's a lot about technology, about AI. We just saw robo-ants. I didn't even know they existed. So much being developed, innovated. We're talking about the metaverse, which Mary mentioned, and the last speaker ties it all together and basically is asking the question, maybe I'm exaggerating a bit, but asking the question, what will happen if all that tech and AI takes over the world? Well, maybe not that extreme, but his title is The World Where AI Takes Us, and basically looking at what will it mean for us, what role can we play as human beings. And who better to close this third day of OpenSlava and talk to us about that than Allan Weber. Allan Weber is the AI lead plus machine learning practitioner at Accenture, and he's going to take us into the wonderful world of AI that hopefully still has human beings in it. Allan Weber, I'm looking at you backstage like I do with every speaker. You look ready. You have a beautiful background. So I would say enjoy, and closing off this OpenSlava third day, let's talk about AI.
Thank you very much. Hello, I hope you hear me loud and clear. And
it's perfect.
Is it good? Okay. And I am aware this is the last presentation in this quite exhausting row of presentations. You must be really exhausted from all the interesting things you learned throughout the day from my colleagues. Just bear with me another 30 minutes and you are really done here. And I will promise I will not really, this presentation will be really relaxing for you. We'll be talking about our future. It will be a bit of a philosophical presentation. And I'm trying to think about how our future will look like. So let's go to the future where the AI takes us. And let me present my screen. That would be a good idea. So my name is, as it was said, my name is Allan Weber. I'm the AI and data science lead at Bratislava Accenture. Before we really jump into the future, we need to go back to the past. So I prepared some key milestones, which are, in my opinion, took us where we are at the moment. I was really lucky in my life. I was really be able to witness all these changes which were going on throughout the so-called tech revolution, which started somewhere in the 80s. And it's not finished now, but we can say we are now in maybe data revolution, but still the tech revolution, this is something really big. And I want to name those big milestones here. So the first milestone to me were personal computers. I remember very well when I got one. When I got one, my father bought me Commodore 64. I really didn't know what to do with it. For me, it was black box. It only knew the basic, nothing else. I was able to download one game and that was it. So I sold it eventually. And that's how my career in the in the computer science began. And how for me, the personal computers came to the play. In around 1984, personal computers completely really starting to change the way how we work today. I hope you agree. The next milestone, which really changed the way how we communicate today, were the mobile phones. This was amazing thing. We really were able to connect with anyone in a minute, to reach out to our friends, to our relatives. And this is, I hope you agree, a big game changer, which really changed the way how we communicate. Then very shortly after, a big phenomenon came to the play, and that was internet. Internet came very short after mobile phones came, and there were several players, and we know how it ended. The biggest probably tech company currently in the world, Google, took over started to compete with the companies like Yahoo, Alta Vista, and now where these guys are, yeah, we know Google, and this was the race of tech giant, and this really revolutionized the way how we obtain and search for information these days. It was kind of the gap when the internet emerged or developed itself, and we were able to somehow to process all these things. Then the next one came, the social networks. It was also very interesting phenomena, and it is still, of course. It brought a lot of good things. We know what our friends or family members do like or dislike. We consume news. But it also brought a lot of very specific things like fake news or simply the communication. It democratized the way how we consume the information and how we share the information between our close ones or even with the strangers. This all blended together led to another big milestone, which were smartphones. The smartphones really somehow combine personal computers, mobile phone technology, internet power, and networks, and really they've changed the way how we consume the information, how we interact with the outside world, how we interact with the complex technologies. Simply everything is within the reach of our fingers, and that's amazing. And this was, of course, not the end of technical revolution, at least for me. Somewhere around 2011, and there came a technology which after long winter came again to the scene, and this is called artificial intelligence. It was coined somewhere by Alan Turing in 50s, 60s last century, but it really had to wait until all these processing technologies came to the scene. And not only those, but there were some others which helped to develop this very big game changer for our present and also for our future. And these technologies were machine learning, deep learning, cloud computing, big data, data streaming. It all blended together. It really created a huge phenomena, which I'm going to talk about next. I'm pretty sure that you hardly can name any industry which is or was not impacted by artificial intelligence yet. It's from the retail, medicine, telco, media, logistic, marketing, agriculture, military, defense. I think there is no industry which was not impacted yet. And if you know about any which was not impacted, just put it in the chat. I can start focusing on it from tomorrow on. It would be really interesting. So all these things, you probably know the recommenders which are used in either retail, in e-commerce, or in telco, or in media, in streaming media. You know the anomaly detectors or predictive maintenance models which are used in production or in the utilities. You know the smart diagnosing or illness prediction systems which are used in healthcare. You know the face and object recognition, that's so computer vision, which is used in many industries, many activities which we are doing during the day or on a regular basis. Artificial intelligence is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's used in translation. It's helping us, and really it's making our lives easier. It's making our lives maybe happier. They are simply making our lives very simple. We can see it, or at least many of us can detect it in intelligent devices like intelligent assistants. We are using it at our homes, in the buildings. It can control different things. We can, of course, having it in our cars, because without these technical developments, we would not have these intelligent vehicles, which we have mostly, or we see more and more on our roads. So such a huge game changer, of course, must be somehow. This is something which can't go and develop without any support or even notice of the governments. Yeah, and there are a lot of economies or big not only companies, big tech companies, but the states, the governments are willing to take the benefits and increase the competitiveness due to better implementation of the AI. Here you can see the national strategy of United States, of the White House, which is related to the artificial intelligence. This was published somewhere in 2016, and as you can see, Americans are always very pragmatic, very precise. So each area is elaborated into details, and these are the areas which they wanted their economy to focus on. And I think many of those areas are already covered by AI, many AI solution or devices. Of course, the European Union, this is another big economy. They decided to create their own type of strategy. As we know, European Union, we are more complicated. We want to do it from different angle. We are maybe not that specific. We want to create a big material. So this is taken from the material called Coordinated Plan on Artificial Intelligence. And you see there is a lot of action plans and ideas how to make EU strong with artificial intelligence. Of course, we are good at regulations as well. European Union is definitely leading this field, and of course, let's not forget China. If we should just put on the map the biggest players in artificial intelligence, China, in my opinion, is at the moment leading this game, just following by United States and then by European Union. Of course, this can change in the future, but these big economies, also the others, of course, are heavily investing into this area. And of course, if everyone is investing and everyone's interested, why wouldn't we be interested? So I think it's totally clear that Accenture was and is around when these new technologies, new phenomena are appearing, and we are helping a lot of tens and hundreds of companies over the world, organizations, just to cover their processes or to increase their competitiveness in many areas. I don't want to name them all. You can see some examples. We developed our own tools. We developed our own software packages, which are really utilizing the best out of artificial intelligence. And just to give you a few examples, here we helped the European Land Registry just to identify the changes in the land records. So it's not necessary to do it anymore manually. It's something which can be done with the help of the drones, which can do it from really very quickly, and it's very efficient. So any changes or even any any changes which were not allowed, these are captured here, and it's possible just to follow up. The other very interesting use case was our a system for utility companies where we helped utility companies in the US or in Europe just to monitor their assets. We again, with help of the drones, we were able to apply very sophisticated computer vision models, which are able to detect different types of assets of the utility companies, and just to see whether these assets are still in place, whether they are okay, whether they are not, so to detect any anomalies or issues with them. And what I really like, the use case with it, combining with another very, very powerful AI, which is Google Maps. We were able to combine those two platforms, and our artificial intelligence is simply reading or exploring the Google Maps or Street Views and looking for these assets and doing the inventory of the assets using Google Maps and the Street View. So that's incredible artificial intelligence on one side, communicated with artificial intelligence on the other side, all by different vendors, and it works. And this is how the world will look like, and already looks like now. So we were able to cover what is the current status of artificial intelligence in our lives and how it impacted us so far. But where is it taking us? Where is it really taking us in the future? We are maybe like this little kid, which just thinks about what is up there, what is out there. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it going to be bright future? Is it going to be something maybe not that bright, a bit dark? Yeah, the devil is in details, as we say. And I want to show you one video which can show you one side of artificial intelligence.
Customer pilots directed almost 3,000 precision strikes last year. We're super proud of it. It allows you to separate the bad guys from the good. It's a big deal. But we have something much bigger. Your kids probably have one of these, right? Not quite. Hell of a pilot? No. That skill is all AI. It's flying itself. Its processor can react 100 times faster than a human. The stochastic motion is an anti-sniper feature. Just like any mobile device these days, it has cameras and sensors, and just like your phones and social media apps, it does facial recognition. Inside here is 3 grams of shaped explosive. This is how it works. Did you see that?
So did you see that? Got scared a bit? We've got a saying, it's better to get scared than to be afraid. Yeah, that in other words, that means that it's what scares us, we need to mitigate the risk very soon. We need to fight it and not to get paralyzed and be afraid forever. So that's the reason why we need to be aware of such things. By the way, this is purely science fiction video. This was prepared by one initiative fighting the autonomous weapons So it's not realistic, but we can see the motions, especially in the military, that these type of devices can be developed, can be trained, and will be potentially very very dangerous. So we need to mitigate the risk, and we need to know what risk and what are the mitigation steps. So let's go first to understanding really where we are at the moment with the status. What is the status of artificial intelligence at the moment? Whether we need to take so seriously these type of videos, or we need to step back and to a bit relax and to say, okay, we are not there yet. So artificial intelligence as a simulation of human intelligent processes by machines, especially computer systems, is something which is in development, in a huge development, very fast development. If we just compare where we are comparing to the humans, then we can compare it with our 5 senses, right? And we can see this is what is some assessment of where we are at the moment with these senses. So regarding sight, vision, we are very far. Yeah, our artificial intelligence devices or systems can really detect the things, detect the objects, are quite powerful. So here we are pretty far. In hearing, the same. We are able to process the voices, the sounds. We are able to understand the voices, understand the language. So we are pretty far. We are not there yet. We are not as good as humans. The smell, adapt. So yeah, there. This is very, very hard, and I think no one is going there too far. The taste, even worse. That's quite hard for artificial intelligence to process. The touch, yeah, we have robots, a lot of very precise robots which can do very, very, very sensitive things. So I think in touch we are as far as in sight and hearing. So we can cover like three senses here. And what about the other more comprehensive or more complex features of human, like learning? Yeah, in learning we are pretty far. Our systems can learn quite well. We have different approaches to learning, supervised, unsupervised, and many other small subtypes. Then in understanding, our systems can quite fairly understand us. We are not there yet, but it's not that bad. In reasoning, we are not that far. Yeah, we are, the AI at the moment is not able to do that. Emotion, the same. The AI can read emotions, but it's very hard for it to mimic the emotions of the people. Maybe you know the robot which was introduced, the Sophia robot, humanoid robot, which even was granted the citizenship in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, it can mimic the emotions, but it's very rare, and it's something which is at the very beginning. So that's why I put here this small portion. Memory, it depends what we mean with memory. Of course, the artificial intelligence can memorize a lot of things, but it's not like human memories. So it's a bit different. Autocorrection, again, robots with a specific type of learning, they can do a lot of autocorrections. Self-consciousness, not at all. We are not there yet. So if we see, we should not be afraid. Yeah, we can be a bit scared, but not to be permanently afraid. But we need to look into the future. This area, the artificial intelligence, as I mentioned, is now under the focus of governments, of economic groups, of big tech companies, and they are doing a huge progress. And I want to show you another type of classification of the artificial intelligence. And here we can compare where we stand at the moment and what we should really what should be really scared of and prepare for, and mitigated, as I mentioned. So first, this is coming from the book from Josh Hall, Beyond AI, and this is somehow classifying the artificial intelligence in two ways. First, I will start with the easier one. Yeah, it's either parahuman or allohuman. The parahuman, it's human-like. Yeah, it's like humanoid robots, something which is similar or like a human. It looks similar. The allohuman, there are many AI systems which are allohuman. They do not need to look like these bugs here or spiders. They can be simply neural networks which you have in your mobiles, in the smartphones. It can be whatever bots which are doing the cyber attacks, or even those small ones which we want to implement in medicals. It can be anything untangible or something tangible. It can be some bug maybe which is working somewhere on Mars or in some dangerous environment. So this was one way of dividing it. It's this one. But let's talk about the evolution of artificial intelligence. Yeah. So how far it goes compared with human. Yeah, well, let's start with the hypohuman. This is artificial intelligence, which we can also, with the corporate slang, call like underachiever, someone who is below possibilities or capabilities of the real human. So this is typically what we call now in the narrow AI. Yeah, it's specific in one area. It's good in one area, like vision and NLP. These are like translators or recommenders. This is normally most of the existing AI systems or devices are now in this phase of hyperhuman. So narrow AI, very good at solving one type of problem, but not comparable with human at all. And of course, it can exceed human capabilities in that area, no doubt. Then we have diahuman. As you see, we are still in quite low risk for humans, because this diahuman is the artificial intelligence which can be compared. It's similar. It can achieve in some areas, maybe it can surpass humans. In other areas, it's not that good. And in complex evaluation, it's maybe somewhere below, somewhere slightly above a human, but it's comparable. And this is the artificial intelligence which we are aiming for at the moment. It's so-called general artificial intelligence. We want to achieve the status that artificial intelligence will be comparable with humans. It can do all these things I was mentioning in the previous slide. And this diahuman should not pose that big risk for us, because this is still intelligence which we can control, which works alongside with us, and it's not that much better than we are. It's simply comparable. So it can be really used for the things where we don't want to do it, some boring types of work, or simply replace specific types of jobs, or expand, enhance our like have assistance from the artificial intelligence. So this is the diahuman, and as I said, still appropriate or acceptable risk. If we are going further, if we solve this problem of diahuman, then we will be able to. We are at the moment somewhere maybe 25% of the capability of the human. So we still have a lot of things to do here. But if we cross this line, we are crossing one very, very dangerous line, because then we are going to this epihuman, which is much, or should be something much more intelligent than the human is, and it's able to do, like here, something what 1,000 of smartest people could do, or do something which one person can do in 1,000 shorter time. So it should be something really very intelligent, like many brightest persons in the world. And this type of intelligence will be quite hard to manage or to control, or we need to find a way how to control it, because it would be able to fulfill all the criteria on general intelligence, and will be able to improve itself. And if it's improving itself, it can improve unlimitedly. Yeah, it's limitless. So it can even go further to the hyperhuman. So this was some overachiever, right? But this is superachiever. This is God's level. Yeah, when the intelligence is developed mainly by itself to the level when it is 1,000 times better than this epihuman. So it's super intelligent. Super intelligence. It's godlike intelligence, and this is really a huge risk, because if we will have problems to control this, then control this would be almost impossible. So we, at the moment, is on the paper. Yeah, but we are in this phase, and we need to think about it even now, even today. What will happen if we cross that line, and we will be able to fulfill this phase and start proceeding with that phase. And the development is really very fast here. So let me now summarize all the potential threats which can come. And before I really switch to more optimistic view, I really wanted to somehow to focus us on what are the things we need to start thinking about until it's too late. So it's the right time to start it now. In security, we can be feared by autonomous weapons. Yeah, it was a video about the sophisticated cyber attacks on critical infrastructure. It's already starting to happen, but it can be even worse if the means or the intelligence will be improved. It could be attacks to personal identity or even health systems, because we are using artificial intelligence healthcare, and will be using more. If someone attacks it, it can destroy people just by this cyber attack. The social evolution or social threats, it's of course we know it, and it's happening already. Dramatic human work reduction or replacement. This is something which many sociologists or economists are dealing with, so we don't need to. Here is one interesting thing: it's increasing social gaps, because the new roles will require much more sophisticated skills. So it's not that easy to replace someone who was made redundant and to tell, okay, now from now on you will be the creator of the virtual spaces or whatever, designer. It's not that easy just to switch a person, but these new technologies will not be available to anyone. Yeah, that they may be unavailable to many people. And on the other hand, that's another threat, that they will be used and misused by their sole owners. So now we are talking about tech companies or some super rich persons which will be able to simply to use it for their own good or for their own benefits. And combining with human engineering, which is also something we will not avoid, the AI improved humans with superpowers. It can be a really very critical combination, and we need to think about it. We need to do something about it. And I want to tell you one thing, which is already Elon Musk founded the company because he is aware of this threat of human engineering and these superpowers, which can be misused. He founded a company called Neuralink, which is creating or working on creation of the brain-machine interface. They are working on brain-machine interface project where they are working on the chips which will communicate with our cortex, part of our brains, and will be able to provide or democratize the AI for masses. Yeah, we can call it like this. This is it looks like science fiction, but it's already in progress. It's something which is happening, and they are having some first results out of this exercise. And maybe this will be the way how to mitigate the risk that 1, 2, or 10, or maybe 100 super rich persons will be able to use these powers, because then we all will be able to use these powers once this is possible, and once we can connect to these specific AI systems and be able to simply to utilize them. Yeah, maybe it looks very science fiction ish, but it's not. It's something which is already happening. Then the political threats. I'm sure you know the public surveillance problems. Too many cameras on the street, too many cameras everywhere, which can lead to social control. There are already countries which are utilizing it to control their citizens, control their minorities. They control specific groups of citizens. It's very bad because it can be misused. Again, it's about misuse by governments or political groups. Public opinion influencing, that's happening. We know about it. Increasing this is an interesting one. Big companies possessing all this knowledge can progress much faster than the smaller companies, which are not possessing that knowledge. And this may be creating a huge gap, even worse than the other gaps we had in division of the world, technology leaders versus the others. Yeah. Also language barriers can be a problem, because we see now a lot of AI is able to process 2, 3, 4 main languages. So what about nations which do not speak those languages? That means that maybe there will be a shift, or we'll see how this happens. But that's also the way how I see the gap increasing between, for example, English-speaking countries versus non-English-speaking countries, and utilization of AI in the daily life. And of course, increasing global influence and power of tech giants. These were all threats. I don't want anymore to talk about bad things. I would like to switch to the good things, because AI is a very powerful technology which really takes us to totally different world. And what can it bring to us? Where we can benefit from it? Prevention of crime, terrorist attacks. We're already doing it. Data-driven crime investigation, the automated convictions. Even there are already systems, I heard about them in the UK or other countries, where they are able to immediately evaluate who was the one who caused the accident on a crossroad or something like that. So the judgmental systems can be influenced by this. Autonomous AI machines, we can see it everywhere, from those which are working in the hazardous environments, fully autonomous vehicles, robots, humanoid robots, nanobots for medical, a lot of examples, you name it. Yeah, personal advisors. I think this will be a next stage for personal assistants we see at the moment. So personal advisors will be the AI assistants which we trust so much that we just let it do the things for us. Someone mentioned the example of the map systems, for example, where we are so relying on them that we just leave it to them, and even if we wanted to go left, when they are saying right, we go right. So these personal advisors will be even more influential to our lives. We need to be careful, yeah, if they will not overtake our life, our decision, day-by-day decisions. Allan, improvements in healthcare. Yes.
Sorry for the interruption. Not to be rude, but we're almost
running around.
20 minutes over time. So if I don't know how much you present still, but if you could like wrap that up in 1 minute, that would be amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. So I don't think I need to name all these things. You can Google them. You probably already know about them, but this is a huge change for us. These are the opportunities, and I really couldn't resist just to put my own 3 prognoses, which will happen in next almost 25 years, where our life will be completely changed by AI. One is healthcare. I think the healthcare will be much more AI driven. We will be utilizing the AI-based systems for the medical self-examination and diagnosing, which will be amazing because we will have access to the brains of the best people, best medics or surgeons or experts from the overall world. So, and AI control medical treatment. So AI will be really helping people to dose their pills or even some ingestion and so on. So this will be healthcare, which will be completely transformed. The personal transportation will be transformed as well, in my opinion. The on-demand, so forget your company cars, forget your private cars. You will have on-demand autonomous vehicles, which will come when you need them, which will go when you don't need them, and you will simply, based on your wallet, you will order the car you can afford and you think is appropriate for the occasion. The prognosis number 3 is education. I think the remote education will become a standard. Online education will become more and more ubiquitous, and decentralized, fast evolving digital content will really change the way how we can consume, or students can consume the information and learn themselves. And teachers will transform more into advisors, progress advisors, and education advisors. So it will be, again, a big change, a big opportunity for creating better future for us. And if you are interested about sources, I do that information from. Here are 3 of them. I use much more sources than those, but these are at least few of them. So you can enjoy yourself. Thank you very much for attention, and I hope it was interesting for you.
All right. Thank you, Allan Weber. Thank you for closing off day 3 of OpenSlava. Really interesting to see also that you were in the thread, so like, oh no, they're going to take it over, and then you came with the opportunities, and it seems I'm very curious to see if we have that super godlike robot one day, and we'll think back to OpenSlava 2021 and say Allan warned us that the super robot humans are coming. Thank you so much also for attending, to all the audiences watching on YouTube, on Facebook, on the VSF platform, if you're walking around in 3D, if you did the badges hunt, if you made the AI mood cocktail, if you went for the Nintendo Switch with the badges, and if you go to openslava.sk, let us know, like I told you, to improve, like what did you like, what didn't you like, what you want to see more, and then we can use that for the 2022 OpenSlava. And you can win an Apple Watch SE if you enter the survey, so you will get rewarded for giving us your feedback and honest opinion. And in the meantime, in the backstage, I don't know if you already see it on the platform or in the live stream, you see a whole team trying to squeeze themselves into the box on camera. If you see them right now, you are looking at the backstage crew. They're waving. Every time I look down on my screen monitor here, I'm talking to the backstage crew, giving me pointers on what's going on, what is live, how people are reacting. And these are the people making it all happen. I'm just the tool in an orange shirt talking it all together, but these are the people actually making it happen. So yes, thank you. Never underestimate the power of all the people who have been working on OpenSlava and making this another great virtual event. Thank you so much to the whole OpenSlava team for having me, for having this conference for the 9th time. So next year will be the 10th anniversary with fireworks and the whole things they promised me. So I hope you enjoyed it. It went fast, 3 afternoons, evenings. I hope you learned a lot about business moving forward, being the leader, driving the change, the innovation. We talked about tech, we did deep dives in coding. I learned more stuff about Kubernetes. And today we looked, like with Allan at the last part, looked at AI, the future with Mary, and how we can walk through hell in the beginning of this day and make it all look very beautiful using the Unreal Engine. Summing it all up, I hope to see you all for OpenSlava 2022. I wish you a rest of the continuous year. I hope you have great holidays. I know it's still a while, but I'm already in the Christmas spirit. So I hope you enjoy yourself. Let us know what you think on openslava.sk. Win the Apple Watch. For the people that will win the Nintendo Switch with the badges, congratulations. Also to the people yesterday with the JetBrains licenses. I hope you enjoyed yourself. You were all amazing. I was Martine van den Broek and hope to see you in the near future. Bye-bye.